Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by David Francisco for Red Spotlight Entertainment, the show that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more. And we're also joined today by one of our nearest and dearest friends, who sometimes acts as an enemy of sorts, but I think only the best of friends really do act as enemies. Today we happen to be joined by Peter Martinez, who comes to us with some wonderful news. I'm not going to divulge anything more because he seems to be, I don't know, more of a private person lately.
I'll say
but,
it. Poor Things is on Blu-ray as we speak. Run out to your local Walmart, grab a copy of Poor Things.
That's not what I was going to say. I was going to congratulate you on completing, for the most part anyway, the thing that you had set out to do 2 years ago. It has been a long 2 years of your life. It has honestly been... It's been hell on earth, and it has, I think, most successfully prevented you from being on this show, and has, for the most part, ruined a lot of the joy in your life. But thankfully, that is, for the most part anyway, in the rearview mirror. One would hope anyway. So
temporarily, yes.
Temporarily, and I think we'll take the wins whenever they come. But it is, we are in many ways approaching a pretty scary anniversary. Next month in September, I want to say the 14th, it would have been in a whole 10 years since Kyle created this podcast. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's our real 10th anniversary, but it's something to note of. And you, Peter, have been on the show for the longest time, and I think for a lot of people certainly do miss your presence. So here's a bit of a graduation gift from me to you. So I'm gonna, and if you want to, you can keep an eye on, if you have a stopwatch with you or something, if you would like, and I'm sure you would. You've been gone for the show for I don't know, months, years. If you'd like, I can give you a complete 60 seconds of you just coming up with whatever insults you'd like toward me personally to make up for all that lost time, because I know that it's been quite some time.
Yeah, let's start it.
All right, you guys. Okay, let's have an actual timer in front of me, and yeah, you can start now.
All right. So first of all, I think it's absolutely disgusting how you are incapable of introing me onto the show without your little backhanded comments. The idea that I am the negative one in this whole situation, I think now more than ever has really brought to light that that's just not true. Me being gone has clearly angered the fans. You can look at the comments. It has clearly angered the staff. I've had comments with both Mr. David and Miss Moreno, and they're very unhappy with what has transpired since I've been gone. And I think the footage that we have so far speaks for itself as to who is the toxic negative one, which should have been a moment of, beautiful light, us coming together for this podcast. You have to instill your venom as you do everything.
I would like to point out for the record.
No, wait. That wasn't part of the deal. I get the minute, and then that's it. There is no rebuttal on your.
I actually gave no.
Okay, but there's no rebuttal.
I gave you more than a minute. I'm not.
That's very generous of you, but there's no rebuttal on your part. It's
this
very
is not
clearly
a rebuttal.
Yes, it is.
I promise to you, it's not a rebuttal. I just would like to add to the record a comment that was made.
That's called a rebuttal.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna backway this rebuttal. We were supposed to be joined, by the way, by a fourth member of this crew, but unfortunately...
Who refused to go on air with you anymore.
Exactly. She refused to be on the air. Well, not refused. She actually wanted to be on the air today, but evidently she forgot a piece that requires the microphone to actually work. So that's why she's not here right now. But I do want to bring her up because she made a rather nasty comment toward you, Peter, about the negativity over the weekend. And I do not agree with that comment. So, I don't know what, okay, That's not a rebuttal, but just this is a comment to add to the record because I feel it's been nothing but positivity lately. We're trying to be more positive. You know.
I'll say this: there are comments she is comfortable making about people out in the public, and there are comments by people she does not feel comfortable making out in the public due to the fear of these individuals / repercussions from this individual.
Well, that covers. I mean, is that all? I'm more than happy to give you more time if you'd like to continue.
No.
Okay. Is there anybody else you'd like to, air a grievance towards on the podcast? Whether for being on the show too much or not being here at all, or anybody else, I'll give you all the time you'd want. We're here. Whatever you want to say. Okay, so we're all good then.
Yeah.
So you seem very much alive. Again,
much.
On behalf of all of us here on the podcast, we do congratulate you for the journey that you have been on, and we are so very appreciative for the presence that you are giving us today, especially because on the show today we're discussing Deadpool and Wolverine, Marvel, and I guess you could also say that the whole state of comic books and superheroes, which has been kind of the thing that has tethered this podcast's history from the very beginning. I know that you criticized us in a serious, not so serious way just now, Peter, but I do hope, though, you've taken the chance to just glance a little bit at some of the stuff that we've been talking about since you've been off the air, because I feel like only just recently things have evolved in a way where we're finally at a point where you wanted us to be all the way back in 2016. I remember you were very critical of how things were being talked about solely and exclusively on the Disney stuff and on the Marvel stuff, and how little airtime we gave to talk about cinema and other kinds of movies and everything. And due to those criticisms, a couple of wonderful things were created as a result. Well, maybe this is not so wonderful, evidently, since it was canceled. I don't know. Fantasy Fair was created to move all that Disney stuff over to that podcast, and it's hasn't been heard from in a couple of years now. I'm not sure where that is, but it's been stagnant. That was one of those things, but more specifically, it was To the Table, which has also just, we've been unable to do it because it just hasn't been the time to do so. But more so now, the conversations that we're having, and I think the attitudes that we have right now toward film overall, and the different kinds of movies that we're talking about now, we finally got there. And it also makes this discussion today kind of even more rare, because we don't talk about Marvel all that much anymore. Not on this show. The last time we talked about Marvel on this show, David, was when we talked about The Marvels movie back in November?
Yeah, I think so.
We didn't even watch Echo. We haven't watched any of the shows. And we used to do recap shows for all the Disney Plus stuff that was on there. And now we're at a point where it's just not talked about anymore. Now, you could argue that, part of the reason for why that is because Marvel did a good job of, alienating us, and they've done an amazing job at that. But yeah, probably. But we've also just moved on to, I don't know, just better stuff. And so that's kind of where we
get those poor thing Blu-rays.
Exactly. No, of course. Please, if you don't have that movie on Blu-ray, what are you doing? If you haven't seen that movie, that's even far more questionable. Today we're talking about the latest entry in the MCU and where we are with comic book movies. It's going to be hard talking about them separately because they all just kind of add and kind of feed into each other. So normally on this show, we talk about news and then the movies. But I'm just going to combine them together because the news is where we are with the movies. And I'll get to that in a minute. But before that, I feel like we should all have some positivity. So how does it feel that as of this week, it is now officially in the can? James Gunn's Superman. It's wrapped. And in a little less than a year from now, we're going to get not only a brand new James Gunn movie, but a Superman film by a director who all of us have such immense faith in, especially this kind of genre seems to be his wheelhouse. And I don't know, I'm getting nothing but good vibes. And I know for the fact, I wanted to bring this up too because we love comic book films. We're excited about the future of them for some instances, right? But also, we haven't really had too much time to talk about this project and or the costume or the pictures that have come out since then. So I kind of wanted to use this moment to just talk about that. Peter, you are a big fan of this character, and I know you've also been a big detractor specifically of what Zack Snyder did to this character. Zack Snyder and the whole DC executive board damaged this character so much these last 10 years. But I feel like finally there's somebody here now behind the director's chair that is going to be able to bring a vision that you've been begging for what, over 10 years now? Man of Steel is now what, over 10 years old? So it's been a long ass fucking time.
I remember
your
watching
thoughts.
Man of Steel in theaters.
You did? In theater? Oh yeah, of course you did. Yeah.
I loved Zack Snyder. I love Superman.
Just not together.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it from the first time I saw it. But something else. Yeah, I'm really excited for not Zach's, Gunn.
James.
Yeah, Jaime's Gunn's Superman. It's been really cool as the leaks, seeing the costumes and seeing snippets of what Metropolis will be and just a lot of stuff like that. It's been really cool. For sure, Crypto's going to be in there. There's been scenes filmed where it's very obvious Crypto will be a part of probably a big part of the movie. I'm really excited because everything I have seen from James Gunn tells me he really understands this character. And then also his films progressively more and more just lean into like just a big throbbing heart of positivity in all his films, regardless of whether it be The Guardians or Suicide Squad or Peacemaker. Everything he's made, and it's just gets more evident with each film, to the point where it's like he's right where I think you would want him to be to make a Superman film. I do have issues with the costume.
That's really surprising. Well, no. That's not surprising for me to hear. Mm-hmm. Only because I think you care about this stuff a lot more. Yeah,
if you're a big fan, then like stupid little things are gonna be.
Because personally, I loved the costume.
It's the same thing with Wolverine. There's little things about his costume that I'm like, why didn't they have the blue? It's so stupid, but it's stupid little fan shit. Like with Superman, I just don't like the collar. I don't know what it is. Okay. The collar bothers me. It doesn't look Superman to me. I rather have it like straight, what do you call it? Cape. But the cape looks amazing. The way that cape, it's crazy. The cape looks incredible in those behind the scenes photos. And those are like shitty photos got from like,
look at how good this looks.
It looks really good. It does.
So what is it about the collar? Like, you don't like the square?
You see how the blue collar? You see how the collar moves all the way up? It's above. It's above the cape.
Oh, okay.
It should not be above the cape.
I like that.
Top. No,
I like it.
That.
I can understand it a little bit.
Everything else I love. I love the trunks. I love the yellow belt. Oh, I love the insignia. I love that the insignia is on the cape. It does come off a little like bulky in ways that I'm not crazy about. I've always liked the way that Superman's suit really does just come off like pajamas. You know what I mean? Because he is literally Superman. Like, he doesn't need like the stupid like cross armor shit to it. He's literally in pajamas. It's that strong man tight stuff. So I kind of don't like that bulkiness to it, but it's behind the scenes photo. I'm sure within the within the film it'll smooth out a little better.
And I gotta say, I'm sure it speaks for itself, but did I ever get a chance to ask you on air how you felt about the casting of David Cornsweet as Superman? Because I feel like that's kind of...
yeah, I think we talked about it.
We talked about it, right? Okay.
And I was all in. I was like, yeah. Great casting.
Even before we even saw him in the costume, we were all like, I think that's a really inspired choice. And then just seeing him in the costume itself kind of brings it even more to life. David, your thoughts on this costume? I don't know if I've ever asked you.
No, I love it too. I especially you pointed out, Peter, the insignia on the cape too, especially just because if by any chance he gives a cape to like a kid or something, because there is a behind the scenes stuff that he saves a child, like he gives the cape to a kid. That would be so cool for me, because I love that idea that he just kind of like every once in a while like, hey, you can keep it, it's cool. And then like,
I didn't even notice those boots. Those boots are awesome.
Yeah.
There's a photo of him like walking into, I don't know if it's the Daily Planet or the like town square or whatever of Metropolis. It's the bank. It's something. He's walking into some building, and the way the cape looks like behind him, so good.
Okay.
Really well done.
I thought you meant like how he looks as Clark Kent. Dang,
up,
that's actually a really cool photo.
I hadn't seen these photos either.
Yeah.
That's Superman, right?
Like
that's
for
it.
sure.
I mean, what do you even say to this? I got to tell you, there's a really interesting combination going out here. And by the way, I just cannot believe we're spending this much time on a costume. It has been years since we talked about a costume like this with such excitement. But honestly, I love it. The boots, the belt, the cape is awesome. The insignia. They even made the blue parts look real with the lining. I don't know what those markings are supposed to be, but those are really nice.
See, I don't like that.
Yeah, but is that new?
That's where it's a little It's
new,
a little too much.
Yeah,
I like when it's simple.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the things that I didn't like with the Zach one, where they have all these like scribbles in there. And I get it. They're like, oh, it's alien, but it's like I really like the simplicity of the Superman suit. Like, because I think it adds to who Superman is.
Even in Superman and Lois, those first few seconds when you see his like original costume in the first episode, that one's more stand out to me than what he usually wears in the rest of the show and everything. They did try to make it look like Zack Snyder type of costume.
Yeah, and all that. I'm not crazy about that. I never was that like material. But this looks, especially from far away, not far away, but like from like medium distance, it just looks perfect, like those photos. When you get up close, it's like, I'm not crazy about like the overlying padding and the collar. Yeah, like come on, look at that cape. Yeah. Incredible. And what's crazy is that's not CG. That he's just standing there, That's so good.
Dude, I'm just overly happy with what this is. Even just that one that we were looking at right here, of him like flying off, like that just screams this character, Superman. But you know what? It's just in such stark comparison to the Henry Cavill version, because for one, it's vivid, it's vibrant, it's alive. The other one was like, could you barely even see much of anything? I mean, just generally speaking, but how it was filmed, even less so. It was a really muted red.
That was one of I hated how muted it was, and you could tell he just wanted everyone to be like in black and white, and then he eventually just did that. for,
he really did. Justice League, right?
For Justice
he did.
League.
Yeah, he just did a black and white Justice League, which is probably what he wanted to do from the very beginning. I kind of want this movie right now.
I'm really excited, and just not to ruin the vibes, but what's interesting, and people have pointed this out, it has just finished filming, and now it goes into like a year of post-production, and the Fantastic Four has only started to film.
That's correct.
They come out like very close to each other. I don't know if it's within the same day or the same week or something.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You couldn't have written that in the like annals of time more perfectly, because of course that would happen. You know, we've been criticizing Marvel Studios for years now, and I feel like more people have caught on. But I mean, isn't that just perfect? Of course that would happen, where James Gunn would understand that a whole year of post-production, that's a good amount of time for a film like this, whereas Fantastic Four just started filming, and they probably are going to film it again once they realize they fucked something up, and they have to rewrite and bring in new writers in to write the reshoots and then shoot the reshoots.
The first second we hear about reshoots, we're going to be like, it's done.
Like, if they had like a perfect script going in and they're like, no changes, this is our script, this is our movie, but they just haven't operated like that forever, since ever, you know, they just don't. They're like, wait, we need to remake the movie 5 times. So, like, just looking at that trailer for the new Captain America movie, it's like, damn, like, it kind of reminds me, a lot of people want to say Winter Soldier, it reminds me of Secret Invasion, where it's like...
Ooh, yeah. And by the way, I feel like, David, you did see Secret Invasion?
I did watch it.
You're the only one of us that watched it. And I asked a question to you about a year ago when it was happening on Disney+. I asked you, point blank, is this the worst thing Marvel has ever done? And I think you said yes, as far as just Marvel Studios. But then I expanded the field even more so to include, even though they're not canon, well, one is not canon, I should say, because Peter will burn an effigy here, but some of them have been canonized, quote unquote, with Marvel, the canon lore of the whatever 616 MCU. The question I asked you, if we open the umbrella to the Marvel Entertainment shows under the Jeff Loeb era on TV, I asked you, how would Secret Invasion still be at the bottom of everything? Even when you compare it to Inhumans.
It's hard to I want to say Inhumans is probably worse, but that's only because Samuel L. Jackson still gives a good performance.
See, the fact that you have to think about it?
Yeah.
The fact that you had to think about it, I think, kind of just says it all. But, and then bringing it back to what Peter was saying, to me, I just thought it was funny how they had to, I don't even know, no one even cares anymore, but they took out the shot of Isaiah Bradley, right? That's the character shooting Harrison Ford. Because Harrison Ford
took it out of the trailer.
He plays the president in that movie, and of course, we had a former president nearly assassinated a few weeks ago. So I thought it was really just funny. But since you brought it up, did that trailer make any kind of impact with you, David?
Not really.
Do you? And answer this question honestly, because I feel like maybe for us, for Peter and I, we've been so jaded. I'm not sure where you are exactly, but. Knowing all the things, I know about a year ago, was it a year ago or a year and a half ago? I can't quite remember, Peter, but we talked about a lot of those details that were coming out of, about the leaks, right? Plot details of Captain America. Then it was called, what, New World Order, and now it's called Brave New World. I don't think much has changed, quite honestly, and then they give it a new title, but like, I mean, I was going to ask David, like, I'm sure that those leaks were really kind of not getting you excited at all for it. I know all of us complain about there being so many Hulks in there. But is there any kind of excitement for this movie, or has all the information that has been revealed kind of like made you like, I already know this is not going to be that good?
I mean, I don't really know much about the leaks, but I mean, just the thing that doesn't make me enthusiastic was just that they had to rewrite this movie like 5 different times. And it's like, how do you even make a movie like that, you know?
They've done multiple extensive reshoots.
And so
with a couple rewrites.
Yeah, and it's like, it hasn't worked with She-Hulk, hasn't worked with
anything, really.
Yeah, anything. It hasn't worked. So I don't know why you even want to put this out. And then also just, I mean, I know they were kind of like coming off of Endgame being like, we're the biggest thing ever, you know, let's just keep putting out stuff, blah, 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 and everything. But they really should have started with this movie after Endgame. I mean, Thor and Guardians, yeah, probably should have come out after too. But at least in terms of like their new phase, this should have been the start.
I want to talk about that. If we could put a pin in that one, because we're gonna have a whole section for that when we talk about the Comic-Con announcement. But because that's worth discussing. But back real quick to I know that was that whole thing. But going back to Superman, and this thing, Peter, I wanted to ask you specifically.
Yes.
I think you can like declare victory here. I know specifically you for years had been calling for the trunks being added to the costume. This was removed during the Cavill era. Can you please elaborate on that? On why you feel they're such? Because I think people thought they were outdated. I think 10 years ago. Now like they're back in. I guess.
I think to call the trunks outdated is to call Superman himself outdated. And that doesn't sit right with me, because Superman is who he is, right? He is sincere, you know. Is it childish and goofy Superman? Yeah, it's for children. But it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want a tough and gruff, you know, modernized Superman. Mm-hmm. Superman works because of who he is, basically. The goodness that he exudes. And just the sincerity, you know what I mean? And the trunks and the what do you call it? The pajama costume, to me, exudes that sincerity. You know, he's not walking out. In the 90s is when, you know, speaking of characters that sort of brought in a new era that wanted to shed that kind of stuff. Deadpool was created like in the 90s, and it was all characters created then all had like fucking, you know, guns and katanas, and they were big and buff, and they had all these pockets and shit, and they were the biggest badasses. That's where you got like people like Cable and all these other characters. But Superman should always remain who he is, basically, and that in the era in which he was born, not that it has to take place, you know, in any specific time period, but that sincerity, you know, that goofy, you know, how does it go? Faster than a locomotive, you know, able to leap tall buildings in a single man. Up in the sky, it's a plane, it's a bird. No, it's Superman. Like, that should always remain, you know. And yeah, it's like, I don't know, like the Peanuts, right? You guys know the Peanuts?
We know.
We know of it, but I don't know what you're going for.
Well, I'm going. It's like, what if someone was like, "Oh, we need to do a modern Peanuts movie where they're telling fart jokes and talking about skidabee toilets."
Well, yeah, it goes like, back to that thing of misunderstanding it in the first place. But you see this kind of, it's a widespread thing. You pick the IP you want, and people want it to be something what it never was in the first place. I mean, Star Wars has always been a big example of this. You know, the fact that there were people for many years calling for. Well, yes, it is. But I mean, in many ways, it is a lost cause. But I remember in the mid 2010, people were asking. I know I would watch AMC or Collider movie talk and mailbag, and there would be these questions of like an R-rated Star Wars directed by Zack Snyder.
I remember
and
that.
It's like, you guys don't know what Star Wars is. In fact, you asking that question makes me wonder: do you even like Star Wars in the first place?
Yeah,
that's not what it is. You know?
I've just come to that conclusion that a lot of people don't like Star Wars, at the very least those original films and what they were, which is okay, you know, but it's just it's sort of like the people that are like, I think Superman's boring, I like the edgier Superman stuff, and it's like, okay, maybe you just kind of don't like Superman, which is fine, it's okay.
No, I hate the complaints people say Superman and Captain America are too much of a Boy Scout or something like that. And
it's literally the character, right?
That's literally the character, yeah. And then,
to me, it's like ordering orange juice, but you don't like oranges. Mm-hmm. It's okay to not like oranges, but don't try and change orange juice. Like, or the orange part of orange juice is the key component. Like,
no, and then I mean, your example of the Peanuts thing, it's basically what Riverdale was.
Oh yeah,
Basically doing
it
modern
literally
take
was that.
of what's
The modern
Archie.
take.
Wow,
Archie
that's
comics.
right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot about Riverdale, but I never watched it really besides the pilot, but I know of things that have happened, and I'm like, I know you like it a lot, David. And maybe I've heard it from you, but like there have been a lot of crazy things that have happened on that show, I feel.
It's insane. It's
I
more
heard
of a
they
guilty
didn't
pleasure,
just-
but
I heard they didn't just jump the shark; they jumped like the zombie mutant shark 5 times over. Like,
yeah, it's just got crazier and crazier. And then at some point, and then I remember I stopped watching it for a bit, and I'm like, okay, let me get back into it because even I was kind of like, okay, this is getting too crazy. And then a couple of episodes go by, and I'm just like, okay, I'm kind of into this again. Gosh darn it! Like, what is it about the show that like just keeps grabbing me? And mind
You know,
it's not because-
people. It reminds me of how the fan base is for American Horror Story. People love that stuff,
Yeah.
and you know,
and American Horror Story. Can I be honest? What's his name? The one who does it?
Ryan. Damn it, what's his name? It's
Ryan something, isn't it?
yeah, and Alexis would murder us if she were here right now. Ryan Murphy.
Ryan Murphy.
Yeah.
Okay. He's literally just the gay Michael Bay. Like, he's not good in the truth. Like, everything he makes is trash. I'm gonna.
It sells. Maybe that's why.
But
it
that's
sells,
the
'cause
thing,
it's,
right? It's its own unique form of trash that comes
Yeah.
around to being like, well,
And
I guess it's
trash
good,
has its
right?
place. Not to be
Yeah.
so like you
but
know.
it kind of reminds me of Michael Bay. Like, everyone shits on Michael Bay, but he has his own style and form of trash where it's like, well, is it trash or is it a diamond in the rough? You know, so it's like,
Yeah, I mean, go ask Sean Levy about a style.
he has a style. It's the Sean Levy style.
I don't know, but yeah, going back to it, as we've been talking about here, yeah, Superman, we're all for it. We can't wait. And I mean, James Gunn, I'm sorry, but I feel like we have to be here. We haven't seen the film, obviously, but we have such faith in him that we know it's going to be a really good time. Yeah, so we're going to leave that there with Superman. We got to move on to the next stuff. So here's the thing. We're not going to transition into talking about the Marvel stuff, the new movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, and then the stuff that happened with Comic-Con. And this is why I said, usually on the show we do one and the other, because so much of Deadpool and Wolverine is talking about Marvel itself, is really just, it's going to be too much work to just like, it's going to be all one big thing. So here's how we're going to do this. So for those of us who are not aware, although I feel like everybody is aware already, and it's funny how Peter forgot because I myself forgot as well until oh yeah, that's right. This happened. Marvel Studios went to a Comic-Con Hall H panel, and they had some rather, I mean, the small stuff. They had some stuff with Captain America, as we mentioned. We don't care. Fantastic Four, there may be stuff there to discuss. I don't really care all that much, quite frankly. They announced that the Russo brothers are back to direct the 5th and 6th Avengers films. Stephen McFeely will return to write the scripts. I believe Marcus is not coming back, but just McFeely is coming back. And then RDJ.
He escaped.
Yeah, right, he escaped. And then RDJ, Robert Downey Jr., fresh off of his Academy Award win, is returning to play Dr. Doom, which then immediately people were like, we need to revoke the Oscar and do a rerun of the supporting actor race and give it to either Ryan Gosling or Robert De Niro. Real quick question, Peter, if it had been you, who would you have given it to besides RDJ? Ryan Gosling or Robert De Niro for best supporting actor? I know you love De Niro in Killers of the Flower Moon.
If it wasn't RDJ and it was between Ryan Gosling
And De Niro.
De Niro.
I want to say yes, but I feel like if we give it to Gosling, we comedic performances don't get awarded, and I feel like he delivered a legendary comedic performance.
I agree, but I think De Niro's he gets overlooked. It's one of those things where it's like when you're so good, how good you are is overlooked sometimes. And I think his performance was really overlooked.
It was
that same way.
Completely. All right, so yeah, our Doctor Doom, Avengers Doomsday, and Avengers Secret War, that's happening. So we can discuss that at our leisure, and then I'm also just going to go ahead and read the synopsis for Deadpool and Wolverine to get that out of the way.
You'll read it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's right. I'm used to doing it since you're not here, but since you are here, that means you can go ahead and go to our Letterboxd sponsored description of Deadpool and Wolverine.
Letterboxd, if it's here, it's a movie. That's their tagline anyway. Deadpool and Wolverine, directed by Sean Levy. Come together. A listless Wade Wilson toils away in civilian life with his days as the morally flexible mercenary Deadpool behind him. But when his homeworld faces an existential threat, Wade must reluctantly suit up again with an even more reluctant Wolverine. Starring Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, other actors, crew, Sean Levy, writer, the internet. So
now that we have that there, it's really hard to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine without acknowledging how we feel about the history of the Fox Marvel films and the X-Men themselves. And that's why I wanted Alexis on the show, because I know that she loves the X-Men. Even though we haven't really had too much time to discuss the X-Men on here, but that's a whole era that is relevant when we discuss this movie, because supposedly Deadpool and Wolverine is billed as a sort of love letter to that era of movies. And I said that for me, I missed all of them completely growing up, and I didn't watch really any of them until even after I had seen a lot of MCU films. I want to say that my first ever, I guess you could say, Fox X-Men movie in theaters, it was just Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Logan, and those are it. So I never really experienced any of the older ones. A few years ago, I did see them, and I liked them quite a bit. And I actually rewatched some of these in anticipation of today's discussion. And I got to say, I really do think, looking back on them, they're quite underrated. And it's kind of amazing to me how they're not talked about as often. Because when we just talk about, the filmmaking process behind them, they're actually movies. And they feel like movies. Visually, they look like movies. And they're not treated as, as some disposable episode of a TV show like a lot of recent Marvel MCU stuff feels like. And so when you go back and watch them, it's like, whoa, how X-Men begins with, the Holocaust, basically, and we see the freaking Magneto and his origins. As a matter of fact, these last few days, I rewatched both X-Men and X2, and they're such good films, and you forget how littered they are with talent. Anytime Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart are on screen and they're doing their thing, or even better yet, when they're talking and interacting, it is amazing. Like, even X2 has a lot of memorable action sequences, which I feel is missing lately from a lot of these Marvel films, or even just comic book films. But even just looking at X2, every single conversation that is happening between the characters is like evergreen. It's so endlessly interesting. And I'm like, wow, you forget how captivating it can be to watch movies like this. And then I remember I really, really liked Days of Future Past and, of course, First Class. Those are both really good movies. They're considered reboots, but they also include some of the older X-Men, and they're both really good as well. And then, of course, what can be said about Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Logan? I think we were all there. We all had reviews on this show, and they were all universally liked. I know, as a matter of fact, and this should tell you that opinions just change. I took a listen to the Deadpool 2 review that we did on this show from years ago, and I was like, Alexis, you're a stupid idiot. I can't believe this is what you thought, because, it's a complete reversal. I enjoyed it, but I was, using a lot of the talking points that people were saying against the movie, and I feel totally different about it all these years later. But they weren't all successful. There were a lot of downs. I saw The Last Stand. That was not good. But it was not good in a very different way in how things today are not good. Because it still felt and looked, and it was made to be all those things as a movie, The same cannot be said for the recent projects. I just got a text from Peter. He'll be right back in a few minutes. Somewhere he'll be back. I had never seen X-Men Origins Wolverine. I've only seen clips from them, and I know people remember that being as like legendarily bad. I mean, we'll see about that. But with the advent of the MCU and the interconnectedness of it all, people really in the last decade were just like, they were being very dismissive of the X-Men films. Because, and you know why they were being dismissive about them? I feel like it had very little to do with the quality of it. I think, again, you got to remember, why was the MCU such a big success in the first place? Interconnectivity. It was the fact that all of these things were a through line. They were all parts of the same piece, and there was a storyline in the Infinity Saga, as they call it anyway, from Iron Man all the way to Endgame, and it made it feel like this saga. And that really hadn't been done before, really, in cinema. This whole thing of basically making a TV show of it all. And that's what I think people forget. Why they forget these movies is because and they still had movies that came out. They had First Class, Days of Future Past, they had Apocalypse, they had Dark Phoenix. They had like 4 main X-Men movies. In addition to The Wolverine and Logan and Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Those all came out the last decade. But what they were all being criticized for is that they all didn't have the continuity, even between those movies, wouldn't be all that concrete. It would be pretty loose. So what was the debate being had here? Notice how it was not about the quality, right? It was not about whether or not, they were better made or lesser made or worse made movies. It was about, well, you know what? X-guys, X-boys, we liked you last decade, and because, let's face it, you were all that we had. Like, when X1 and X2 and X3, when they all came out, what was the alternative? Catwoman? Elektra? Daredevil? Fantastic Four? You gotta remember that when X-Men and X2 came out, they're such good films and they hold up today. That's how good they were. But you gotta remember that in the era of comic book movies in that decade, there was a whole bunch of garbage and trash that came out around it. But then when the MCU happened, and let's be real here, the MCU in the 2010s, I think we can all agree that they were well-made movies for the most part, but they weren't perfect, and they did some things that I think as age happened to them, it got worse as far as how they make movies. But what is not talked about as often is, David, let's think out loud here. And then I'm going to give you your time. We have a few minutes until Peter comes back, and I want to give you the floor and talk about this history. But the argument that I am making is, how many MCU, Kevin Feige produced movies can you throw at me that hold up to X-Men, X2, First Class, Days of Future Past? I grant you, of course, there were some bad ones in there, yeah, but the good ones were such high highs that I think a lot of the standard generic Marvel films like an Ant-Man or a Doctor Strange, can they compare to that? I don't think they can, not even a little bit. That doesn't make them bad movies. I think Doctor Strange and Ant-Man have their problems, but I don't consider them to be bad movies, but they're nowhere on the level of the X movies that I just mentioned. As a matter of fact, over the weekend, Kyle and I were actually in contact, and we were doing a little bit of an experiment when this Comic-Con stuff was happening about how would it look like if, instead of just having the Kevin Feige produced movies, if you added in as much of the Marvel stuff as you could. So all the Spider-Man movies, the Blade movies, Daredevil, Elektra, you put it all in there, all the X-Men films. What would it look like then, right? If you put all those movies together. And for me, what I found is, I want to say a good half of that, of my top 20, were not from Marvel. As a matter of fact, they were from other creators. They were from other studios. From Sam Raimi, from Phil Lord and Chris Miller, from he who should not be mentioned, Bryan Singer, who brought us a lot of these movies, X-Men. So it's like, that's how I feel is. We placed so much importance on continuity and interconnectivity that in a lot of ways people just forgot that what the stuff that really matters is the quality of it, right? The filmmaking of it. And when it comes down to it, those X-Men films did a lot of things right that Kevin Feige couldn't quite replicate. And if you look at now, seems even less capable of being able to come up with something that compares to that. Because look, has the MCU made a Spider-Man movie that stands up to what Sam Raimi did? I'll tell you, Lord and Miller and their team did, but not Kevin Feige. So as we look forward to the future, at some point the X-Men are going to be a big part of the MCU. And your mileage will vary on how excited you are for that, based on how much faith you place, you as the audience, in Kevin Feige. So as far as the movies are concerned, my personal favorite of all those movies is Deadpool 2. I'm gonna be its only defender. I think Deadpool 2 is like a masterpiece of comedy. I think it's probably the best Deadpool movie because I just rewatched it yesterday. Everything hits. And I know that at the time when it came out, people were like, it's funny, but it doesn't feel the same as the first Deadpool did. A lot of people have that opinion. And you know what? I get it. But to me, when I see that response, it reminds me of how people still prefer Guardians 1 over Guardians 2. And it's like, I think the second one had a lot more freedom to kind of be more of what it's supposed to be. And I think Deadpool 2 had that freedom, and it had arcs, and it had themes and through lines, and it had meaning for me personally. It had, for me anyway, I felt that Deadpool 2 had a lot of heart in it. As he says in the beginning of Deadpool 2, it's a family movie. Weirdly enough, I think it comes back around to where it kind of is. So that's just where I happen to stand with those movies. I with Deadpool and Wolverine been out, it gives people a chance to look back at those movies, and I think we should think back to those movies quite a bit because there was a lot of good in them. David, I'm really curious to hear. I know Alexis, again, she wanted to be here. She had a long history with those movies. How about you? What say you?
No, yeah, my history with this is basically the same as hers. I mean, I think she might love the X-Men movies far more than me. I mean, I love the movies and all that, but I don't know. But I was surprised when she was just like, X-Men is my favorite movie of all time. I'm just like, wait, really? But no, yeah, I rewatched those movies. I don't know how many times. Would always act out. I would always act out the scene in, is it in X2?
Which scene?
But the part where Wolverine saves Rogue, but like she's in that machine thing.
It would be the first one.
Okay, the first one. I don't know why I would do this, but like I would actually like act out him destroy the machine when he's just like pushing his claws towards it and everything. That was always just such a fun moment for me. So yeah, I love those movies for sure. And I mean, I think in terms of like the Fox movies, or at least like the ones that they try to reference in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, I have like more history with that. Like I watched the Daredevil movie. I saw parts of the Electra movie. Haven't seen Blade.
Did you see them when they came out, when they were new, or later?
Daredevil. Chances are I saw these when they were like when I was renting them.
So when they were newish.
Yeah, newish. So that happened, and then actually saw the first two Deadpool movies today, and I actually do prefer the first one over all three. Really,
I had a feeling you would,
Yeah.
but it's okay. I'll forgive you for that, even though 2 is far better. That's what I'm. But go ahead.
no, there's a lot of cool things. I mean, a lot of it though is just mostly because of
By the way, while we're promoting here, make sure to buy Deadpool and Deadpool 2 on Blu-ray. Have these steel books. I love them.
Yeah.
I want to say that they're the. I mean, I'm sure there are other versions. You know what? I haven't seen these movies on any shelves lately. Maybe just order them on Amazon or whatever. I'm sure they still sell them, but like, get them. Physical media. We love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
I don't know if I have the Deadpool movies physical. I feel like I did. I can't remember. But yeah, I much prefer the first one over all of them, just because.
And it's funny because like I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to. Just real quick here. I did see both of them yesterday and the day before yesterday, and had the exact same feeling, but in the reverse order, where it's like I like them both, but I far prefer one over the other. But
Yeah.
it seems like you have the original in mind. Go ahead.
I just prefer the first one just because I think that's just the plot's a lot more tight. It's very more simple, and I think I laughed more on the first one than I did with the second one. I had some laugh out loud moments with the second one, but a lot of it had to do with references, like the scene where Cable is shooting him and he's like slicing the bullets, but they're just still going through them, so he's not slicing them all. It's a reference to X-Men Origins Wolverine. He sliced all the bullets and never got a single hit, and people were like, "That's ridiculous. That would not happen in real life," and all that. I didn't care. I thought that was a fine moment, but it was hilarious in that movie, in Deadpool's movie. So, yeah. I can't really go into too deep into my history because it's just like I just enjoyed them. But I wish she was here. I wish she was here because she would have been like.
Well, that's why I wanted to have her on.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go get her, and she can like, you want to switch places, and she can like tell us what she thinks. I mean, that's an option, and you could just stand in the back if you'd like to. That's an option. I know that's not going to happen. I'm just putting it out there. But at some point we'll have her on, and we can have her discuss this. Peter, we were just going off about our history with these characters. Which ones we prefer about X-Men and the films themselves. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 to 3 minutes, what we were discussing. David and I were actually going to war over which one's better, Deadpool 1 or Deadpool 2. And obviously we don't feel the same way.
I know you're a Deadpool 2 lover.
All the way, man. And both of us had rewatched both movies in the last few days. And it only reinforced how I feel, but I think it also reinforced how David feels. Basically, all the things that he said about Deadpool 1, I feel about Deadpool 2. I laugh more consistently at Deadpool 2. Like, literally, and what I noticed so much more about Deadpool and Deadpool 2 was there was far more variety with the kinds of jokes that Deadpool would do and say, and the humor, I think, was just far more consistent, which we'll get into, of course, with the film. Anyway, getting more with you, this is the time where you can talk about. I think we wanted to have Alexis here, but she's not here. About like because she claimed, apparently David said that X-Men is her favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
The original X-Men?
X-Men 1 or 2. So I know one of them is like.
I'm gonna say it's 2.
So she loves these characters, and I know that she was particularly pissed years ago. When Miss Marvel did the da-da-da-da-da-da, and then it was like, what? And then we had all...
Stupid.
Remember that happened? And
they
then
spent an entire series telling us her background and where she got her powers, only to the end imply, actually, no, not really, it's something else. So stupid. I hate it. I genuinely hate. Oh my god. Fuck you, Feige. What were we talking about?
Sorry, I had to put that in there. So much has happened. Basically, I know you, as you usually do. I found these movies later on. You grew up with these movies, so please tell us about your experience with the X-Men.
I adore the X-Men. They were the OGs. Back in the day, Marvel's big three were Hulk, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. Those were the big three. Those were the ones everyone loved. So when they started making movies, those were one of the first ones that got made. I've always loved the X-Men. The X-Men were always my favorite. Wolverine, Logan, the character, was always my favorite. I distinctly remember watching each and every one of these movies in a movie theater. I remember watching X2 and having my mind blown at the intro once the movie started of Nightcrawler fighting his way through the White House and everything going on. There's a reason why X-Men are like the most loved superheroes. And then from there, like Wolverine.
And we should also, by the way, not forget the legacy that came in the 90s of those animated shows, from Spider-Man to X-Men. And of course, in that same era, you had Batman, had the animated series Batman. It was a glorious decade for animated series. But I think that basically was the main stage for comic book content in the 90s, was those animated series. And then came the films that we're talking about in the 2000s. And by the way, just to catch you up, when you were gone, I had talked to David about how I really had grown a distaste for how people were talking about the legacy of the X-Men films, and they were being put down in comparison to the MCU, not because of quality, well, some yes, but for the most part because of the fact that they were not interconnected and that they were, not, the continuity wasn't as important.
Best thing about them.
And I agree. That was because they were made to feel like movies themselves. But going back to where we are right now, I just feel like the legacy is that they were made like films. They are movies, and they hold up so much more. I rewatched in the last couple of days both X-Men and X2 for the first time in years. Oh my God, do those things hold up? Think about X-Men is 24 years old, and X2 is like, what, 22 years old? That were 20, and it's like, wow, so much better. Everything, how they made those movies to the kind of caliber of comic book stuff that we have out these days. Everything about it. I mean, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, everybody talks about X2 with Nightcrawler in the White House. But every sequence in X2 is amazing. Like when Magneto breaks out of that prison with the iron and the blood coming out. We talk about how bloodless a lot of the MCU movies are, but they weren't afraid to go there back in the 2000s with the X-Men. A lot of great stuff that came out then. And did you feel, I think you already basically just confirmed this, but there seemed to be a falling out of love with the X-Men when the MCU came along, and especially in the 2010s, because then
no, there wasn't.
Corporate. Not the characters. I meant as far as the interest in the movies themselves. There were some great ones that came out.
They just made shit movies. People really like Days of Future Past. But that was the only major one they made during the Marvel era, if you think about it. Yeah. The only other one is like Wolverine and Logan.
You mean that was good?
No, that they genuinely made. Because First Class, I think, was before the MCU, wasn't it?
Yes. So technically 2011 was First Class.
It's okay.
It's before the big upswell of MCU era.
People loved First Class. People loved Days of Future Past. People were okay with Logan. Not Logan, the Wolverine. People loved Logan, but they also made fucking Apocalypse and then Dark Phoenix. And Dark Phoenix really was the nail in the coffin, because what a Did we ever see it? Idea. I've never seen it, and I'm not going to. Everything about it, I'm like, wow, this looks shitty. Like, and everything I've seen of it, I've seen clips here and there, and I'm like, yeah, they just didn't have a movie. I don't know what they thought they were doing. Why they put what's his name in charge as the director? So
Simon
fucking
Kinberg,
stupid.
is that who
Yeah.
they? Yeah, wow.
What idiot.
That's like giving Dave Filoni a movie. Oops. Oops.
Dave Filoni at least has a cult, that'll follow him places. I don't know why it's hard for Hollywood to just hire like talented people.
By the way, did you ever see Ahsoka?
I saw enough of it. I didn't like actively click on it. I think I've seen parts.
Did you watch her reactions?
You mean the Geeks and Gamers reaction?
Oh, come on.
Wow.
That is low, even for you, man. That hurt. That one hurt. I guess props to you.
Women out there.
I don't even know what to say to you right now. Oh my god. Oh, okay.
But yeah, this idea that it was hated. No, if they had put out good X-Men movies, there wouldn't be hatred.
Yeah.
People would be as into them as the MCU. I genuinely think that, because people like X-Men more than any other superhero in the MCU.
Yeah.
Literally at any single other one.
So that's a really good way of catching us up to where we are now in the present day. As far as X-Men is concerned, I know X-97, the revival, I guess you could say, of the 1990s X-Men show has come out on Disney+. And everyone I know, real people, loves that show. You even yourself recommended it to me a few days ago. And I seriously, it's gotten a lot of great reviews. You saw it, Peter.
Mm-hmm. Well, you, as someone as such as yourself who loves animation and gets mad when people downplay animation, I think. Speaking
about that, can we all just say a collective fuck you to Netflix for announcing out of the blue that season 2 of Arcane would just end? Oh, by the way, it's our last season, guys. What the fuck? You take years and years to come out with a season 2, and then you say, oh, by the way, this is our finale. Go fuck yourself with that. We've been waiting for that season 2 for years and years.
Yeah, no. Well, hopefully it's good. We'll see. But yeah, no, X-Men 97, I think, encapsulates everything that's great about the X-Men. It's a soap opera, the drama, the heightened political issues, it's all there, and it's great. The awesome action and character moments.
It's the same people who made the original show, right?
No.
It's not?
No, they brought in new people to do it.
Okay,
well, a lot of the same voice cast, I think, is
okay
that they have in there. Yeah.
David, do you have any connection to the animated show?
No, I don't think I ever saw it, and I haven't seen this one. So.
Well, it's all on Disney Plus, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're catching us up now to where we are with Deadpool and Wolverine. Was this supposed to be a swan song? Or you could say, is anything ever really a swan song with Marvel? Or was this supposed to be the first chapter in a new beginning for X-Men in the MCU? Because I don't know, what are they saying here? Is Hugh Jackman really going to come back again and again and again? Are they ever going to recast Wolverine? What is happening with the X-Men under Kevin Feige's leadership? Because I'm not really sure.
Is that your review of the film?
No, I'm confused because I was expecting it to be, well, okay, part of my confusion of Deadpool and Wolverine is the fact that
it's very simple.
Okay.
Very simple.
Okay.
This was a swan song, quote unquote, to Fox itself and the films made under Fox. Every one of those X-Men characters is going to be brought back for Secret Wars. Now,
would it not have been more appropriate? I thought it would be this movie to bring those.
Now, after that, they are gonna. I think they're gonna go a whole new. They're gonna have an X-Men film. It's gonna be, and if you notice, we might not even get a Wolverine. I think we'll get X-Men characters that haven't quite been used before. If you notice, he was very scared to touch on characters that Spider-Man had touched on before in the Sony films. So he just decided to go in very different directions when it came to Spider-Man.
Probably a good call.
A
good call, because whatever they would have done wouldn't have compared. Let's be real.
Well, the closest they got to actually making a Spider-Man film was when they let all that shit go. And the last 5 minutes of No Way Home is the best MCU Spider-Man film.
Ooh, David here will fight to the death for that.
Whatever. But so I think they're going to focus on X-Men that just haven't been focused on as much. So I think maybe they'll go back to the original lineup and try and go like Beast, Jean Grey, and I know we focused on those before, and he might do a mix of characters that hasn't really been focused on. Knowing Kevin Feige, he's going to be afraid to touch the same stuff. So he's going to definitely recast some characters, but a lot of characters are also going to be new. And you might not even get a Magneto. I think the main villains he's going to go for are villains that have never popped up before. Again, like with Spider-Man. But yeah, the big hurrah to those characters is going to be Secret Wars.
And on that note, where does Deadpool go after this?
He makes money. He's going to pop up with... here's what's going to happen. After Secret Wars, the world, or the prime timeline, is going to get all jumbled up. And it's going to allow them to do any moves they want. And any changes they want as far as characters. So
the Flash,
basically, yeah.
And I'm referring. I know what you get.
Yeah. You're talking about,
but for the audience, the Flash movie that came out last year, the end of the film, it was supposed to be Ben Affleck, but it was George Clooney.
Yes, it's gonna be that kind of shit. Yes. So they're gonna come back, and it's like X-Men are all there. Actually, they've always been there, you know, and they're all new actors and recasted. And Deadpool's gonna be there. Why? Because he still sells, and he's young enough to still be there. And I'm sure Ryan Reynolds wants to keep making them. And it's gonna go on and on and on like that. You know, there's gonna be recasts. There's gonna be this. There's gonna be that. And any stupid little changes they make, there's gonna be like, oh well, you know, it's a new timeline. You know, blah 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 blah. That's what it's gonna be.
By the way, has anybody had the chance to see the Deadpool show from Disneyland?
No.
Mm.
It's actually really good. The crowd loves it, and whoever they got, the actors that play Deadpool, actually pretty hilarious. Some of those jokes actually pretty well written. In fact, this is my preamble to say I enjoyed that far more than the movie itself, Deadpool and Wolverine.
All right, we should get to the movie,
which is what we're doing.
Because
I didn't care very much for Deadpool. Huh?
You've been putting it off.
Which is what I'm doing right now. Deadpool and Wolverine. We saw it last week. My very short way of saying this is there were plenty of moments that I thought were entertaining, and I laughed, you know, at moments at the beginning, the middle, and the end. But it left me feeling not much of anything at all. Those are my initial reactions. David, I understand you have the opposite reaction.
Yeah. I love this movie. Peter said it. It's like it was a swan song to the Fox movies and everything, and I loved every second of that. In terms of those moments, I will say, yes, the plot itself is a mess, and we'll get into it with the spoilers and all that. But I very much enjoyed Deadpool and Wolverine's dynamics. I love the references. That's kind of the thing that I really did love about this. It's the whole meta of it that I love the most. And I know that's going to be a problem for a lot of people.
That's fitting.
I know, but when I get to spoilers, I hope you'll understand why.
Fuck you.
I mean, I'm glad somebody said it. Oh God, no, I'm.
We'll get into it. But I thought this was a really funny movie. I enjoyed the story, what Deadpool was going through and everything, and it was a fun time.
All right, Peter.
Here's the thing. I don't hate the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And I've even said, and maybe if I see it again, I'll soften on it. Maybe I'll worsen on it. I don't know. But there are a lot of moments in the movie I really enjoy. A lot. I like, really, the whole beginning of the film, save one scene or so, I think is really well done. I think there's a lot of like really, really well done things about the film. I did laugh a good bit throughout. There's a lot of moments that I think are really funny. I think the action, for the most part, is pretty good when it's like specific fight scenes. Like, I think the intro fight scene over the credits was really well done. I think both Deadpool and Wolverine fights I really enjoyed, especially the one in the Honda Civic. And the last one with, spoilers, who gives a fuck? With all the Deadpools, I thought was fun too. There's a lot of things that I enjoy about the movie. It just feels a little too loose, a little too loosey-goosey, a little too George Lucas, they just went a little too far in a few places. And because of that, it felt less like a film. The first Deadpool 1 and 2, they still felt like films. Like there was this story, all the fourth wall breaking reverence and stuff. And with this one, it just felt a little too wink and nod at the audience. There was a point where it was a little like nauseating, the whole wink and nod stuff. But yeah, it kind of, it sucks because there's a lot that I do really, really enjoy. Because like I said, I love the X-Men. I love Wolverine. I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. So there's a lot I enjoyed, but I feel like maybe I need to watch it again. And maybe I soften on it and go like, well,
there could be. And usually
it's Deadpool, yeah. Or I'm like, fuck it.
I think a second viewing can either reinforce what you feel or maybe soften on it. It depends. And I was planning on seeing it again with Kyle, but
he's alive.
He's out of town, so he says
Is that what he told you?
That's what he told me. I mean, we'll see what happens. If you want to, we'll see. A lot to say. I know that for me, it depends. You never really know what a second viewing will do for you until you actually experience it. I saw Inside Out 2 a month ago, and I felt very kind of whatever about it, and then I saw it again, and I was like, wow, this is really nothing. And that was that. I feel like really a film like this, Deadpool and Wolverine, it lives and dies on the humor that it brings. And I'm trying to remember, what was, by the way, if you haven't caught on, whoever is watching, listening, we're going to give it the whole thing away at this point, if you haven't already. Here we are. So I'm going to bring out to you just quick individual moments that I thought were hilarious. To me, I thought the funniest thing in the movie was not nice Deadpool and Dead or Pool Dog or whatever it was. I think when we meet them in the void, they were like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Dogpool, yeah. I was like, please move on. This is not funny. Where I did laugh was actually when he kills him. You missed this part, Peter. I think you actually walked out of the theater.
I had to pee. Well, you saw how big that thing of water I drank was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like this big, basically. It was massive.
It was bigger.
Yeah, you're right. So you walked out at the moment when they're about to face all the Deadpools, and the nice Deadpool is there, of course, with, what do we call him? Dogpool?
Yeah.
Dogpool?
Dogpool.
And basically what happens is the Green Lantern shout out was funny, but when he looked at the screen, that was hilarious. But then Wade uses the nice Deadpool as a human body shield as all the other Deadpools are shooting but purposefully so. Like it's one of those moments where it feels more so like Wade from the first 2 Deadpool movies, where he's like intentionally murdering him so he can get the dog.
Yeah. No, that's the kind of humor that works really, really well.
So that one I was like, that was, and then of course you finish that scene up with freaking, you have Hugh Jackman who's just there witnessing the whole thing, and he's just like, that was murder, you dumb fuck. And of course that sells the whole thing. And so that was to me hilarious. Everything they did with freaking Channing Tatum's accent as Gambit, that thing was like sending me over. Like that was consistently hitting. Like, I know it's intentionally bad. That's the way it's written into it. But like, I'm just happy that Tatum was game for it. Like basically, like he's getting to be the character that he always wanted to do. But part of the catch is like he's, the joke. Like they're all laughing at him for, not really being able to understand him. But every time that they brought out the accent, I was like, that's consistently funny. Good on you for doing that. And just generally speaking, Deadpool and Wolverine, anytime they're on screen and they're interacting and it's a humorous moment, for the most part, it works really well. I felt like it always would. In fact, it seemed like this is the movie that in many ways Ryan Reynolds wanted to make for like his whole life too. Just to have Hugh Jackman's Wolverine to be opposite him in a movie is an adventure. Man, I feel like in many ways, if you look back at those first 2 Deadpool movies, I think he was really signaling out to the universe, I want this to happen. There are so many Logan references, Hugh Jackman Logan references in those movies that work so well, It
reminds me of The Rock trying to get a movie with Superman.
But this time it actually works, though.
Well, the difference is, it actually makes sense to do a Deadpool and Wolverine movie because
not a Black Adam versus Superman movie.
Because that makes it's stupid, it's lame, it doesn't work. Whereas a Wolverine and Deadpool, it's like, they're characters that have interacted a lot in the comics. They're both mutants. They're both, X-Men or X-Men adjacent. Like they're characters that are regularly together. That people enjoy seeing together. So that always worked, And
I think to me, so much of why I was kept from hating the film, because usually I think a film, based on what happens and the level that I feel that it is, usually I would walk out angered. And, we were talking a good bit after the film. We were just kind of like, wow, that I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. But part of what kept me from like flat out just not enjoying it whatsoever was the fact that not only is Hugh Jackman there, but he's giving it his all in everything. And there are moments where they do attempt drama. God, is he so good at this as this character? It's just honestly kind of spooky how good he is at doing this. I think for me, the moment of the film was when he shut Deadpool the fuck up. Right before that. By the way, it's a Honda Odyssey, by the way. But
Honda. Sorry, I got the commercial wrong. Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
But that whole sequence, I think, was really well done because I actually really liked that fight of them in the car.
Even the song in that instance worked. I'll say that for me. I think in the first 2 films, all of the needle drops work really well. I had an issue with them here. Only 2
of them were a little too. I like the main song that they used, the Madonna song.
Yeah.
You're right. That was good. Yeah, Like a Prayer. That was a really good version.
I like a Prayer.
That this one was, I believe, You're the One That I Want from Grease during this sequence, and then also the beginning with NSYNC.
Yeah.
Bye.
Those were good ones.
The rest, I kind of forget what they were. I honestly don't remember.
There are other ones where I'm a little like with it again, along with the rest of my complaints, a little too far, a little too on the nose as far as needle drops go. But those 3 I think worked really well. Especially, I actually liked the music. I would say to a certain extent, it was nothing like crazy to write home about.
The score, the original score composed for the film.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
There's little moments I think that work well. The way that they take Like a Prayer and like
Oh yeah,
do,
the
like,
new
a little
version of it. Yeah,
orchestra version.
Yeah.
To it. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I just like shit like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I will say, I think what weighs the film down is the whole middle. I really like how the movie opened.
Mm-hmm.
The movie opens, and I'm like, you know what? Here we go. The dance sequence, all the jokes, it's going. It has some momentum to it. We hit the TVA, and by the way, can we shout out them actually building a fucking set for the film? I know there were few and far in between, but that set looked really good. The TVA set with Matthew McFadden, who, by the way, was also really good in the movie as well. The middle, we'll get to that point, but that to me kind of weighs it down for a lot of reasons. And then the end happens, and I actually really like the end to the film on its own. So we take just the beginning and the end. I'm like, I'm in. But I think the whole film in the middle kind of weighs it down.
It feels like they had a lot of ideas for sequences, and they included their favorites, right? But a lot of it doesn't. This is where it feels to me like sort of SNL sketches, because like you get to the void, and then you have the fight scene between him and Wolverine, and the fight scene's cool, but it feels a little like telegraphed. He literally looks to the audience like, "Okay, we're doing the fight."
Yeah.
But then they have a whole moment where it's like, okay, and now. What's his name is here? The Human Torch, and that's like a fan moment, right?
And Pyro. Well, I guess Pyro shows up after. Yeah.
Pyro's kind of just a character, but then they have a moment where it's like, oh, now it's a fan moment of Wolverine fighting Sabretooth, and then okay, that happens, right? And then it just feels like fan moments. And like SNL sketches, like everything with him and Nice Pool. I like Nice Pool. It's funny, right? But it almost doesn't feel organic. Like it feels like, oh, this is one of their sketches they wrote, you know? And now they're sliding it in at this point.
This is what scares me. Is this what Secret Wars is supposed to be?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well,
David, you read comics, right?
I haven't read the Secret Wars comics.
All right, fuck you. Never mind. Go back to it. I say fuck you because I've recommended it many, many times to everyone on this podcast all the time. But, you know,
and I have no recollection of that ever happening. But okay.
Okay.
All
right. I see how it is.
You were saying?
You were saying.
I was. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. To me, moments like that are what I fear the Secret Wars movie is going to feel like. I should say. It's just like, all right, guys, here's our one-to-one battle between these characters you never thought you'd see together on screen. Here you go.
Yeah.
That's my fear. Is what that movie is like basically supposed to be.
We'll talk about that more when we talk about.
Right. So, but for the purposes of what we're talking about in the movie, I agree with you. I think that the second that we got to the void, things began to. I felt myself begin to disassociate because the film itself felt like it was disassociating from what we're actually here to do. Like, as far as plot is concerned, I agree with Guillermo del Toro. Plot is the least interesting thing. It's not that important to me. But for the sake of plot, it does also feel that around this time is where it just begins to forget what we're even here to do. And we're just having moments, one after the other. And that also...
just a series of moments.
Yeah, and that goes in tandem with all of these cameos that are all this also part of, by design anyway, what this is supposed to do is you have these cameos, you have these characters. I mean, of course, people got a big kick out of the Human Torch being played by Chris Evans and was like, woo, yeah, whatever. And that's also one of the funnier moments in the movie when they freaking just ripped the skin off of him because Deadpool freaking killed him. I mean, basically got him killed.
Did he though?
Oh,
I love,
That's right. Yeah.
I love Wolverine's reaction though. It's like, holy shit, you just got that guy killed. You're like, what the heck, dude?
Yeah. If that's another one of my criticisms. I know like they're supposed to be like the sweet and sour to each other, right? Like Wolverine's the gruff, like angry, and then Deadpool's the more like off the walls, goofy. But the whole buddy cop thing dynamic. But I feel like it doesn't really kick in until that car scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
And
feels
by
like
that, we're halfway through the movie at that point.
yeah, and it feels like it's Deadpool's movie, and Wolverine's just kind of like in the background following him.
Right.
And it's not till that scene where it starts to feel more that buddy sort of equal relationship and within the film, and it works really well. That's the issue, you know. That back and forth between them works so well. I kind of wish they would have pushed that more, but I think the reason they didn't was because they had to make room for cameos and big, you know, fan moments, and some of them, yeah, you can leave on the cutting room floor, you know. That's why I say like they went a little too far in a few places. I'd much rather have a film focused more on Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, because those are the best parts of the movie when they focus in on that. And I think that's why you like the third act, because that it's really there, you know.
That was missing from the whole middle. I think it feels very much meandering and random and almost even kind of improv. So from that point, we get to where we meet Emma Corrin, who plays the main bad guy in this movie, who I already expected there to be really nothing to her, and there really wasn't. I didn't really care for her at all. Even the fact that she's really just kind of unbothered by the events of what's happening. She's just kind of there and doesn't really get into much of anything until the third act there. I'll tell you this. What made it so much worse, to me anyway, than how uninteresting it already was operating, was the fact that I get that the Void is ugly to fucking look at. It is and I get that it's supposed to be this wasteland. I don't remember it looking this fucking like boring in Loki when it was used then. At least there was some kind of color, but there was far more creativity and variety happening on Loki than there was here. And I get that they made like a 20th Century Fox like statuette behind, and there were a couple of things here and there that were buried off in the sand. But I just couldn't believe how overly barren that it was. Like, I was expecting it to be a lot more... This because of what it is, this is where you would put all those Easter eggs. Like, look at all this. Like, in Loki, they had the Thanos helicopter. Like, this is where I would expect all of... You know, at least to make it look a little bit appealing. And it doesn't do itself any favors by calling attention to the fact that it's supposed to be, I guess, they say it was a Mad Max kind of place. You do yourself no favors by bringing people to think about Mad Max when that looks like one of the best things ever made. And this is supposed to be your version of it. And it's one of the worst things I've ever seen on screen. And mind you, I apologize to the audience at large. We have not had the time to do a Furiosa review. But one of the things that Peter and I were so bothered as one of people were going after Furiosa for evidently its overuse of CGI. Go fuck yourself, man. Look at this movie, because we always knew this is going to look some kind of way, and this is what it was. Like, it was just ugly to look at. I'm sorry. And it made it even more boring just sitting there and being there. I guess it got a little bit more interesting when we went to a forest location, but then we get there, and that's also, it's so hard to feel much about anything. I know I skipped over the whole nice pool thing, but when we get to the cabin, then we get what is supposed to be the real surprise cameos of the film. And I gotta tell you, I know, David, you said that the cameos worked a lot for you. This scene, I suppose you mean, right?
Yeah.
Can you please explain why? I feel just kind of confused. Like, I get Wesley Snipes being there. He's a big one. I also get Channing Tatum. But when you think about it, like, what are we excited about? Like, that's a character that never was. I know that's part of why it's funny, but like, is that really like a big guns cameo? And then also, I'm sorry, but Jennifer Gardner as Elektra, it's like, this is what we're clapping for? Like, I'm like, okay, pretty random group of people. I think the only meaningful cameo that was there was Daphne Keane as Laura, but I also feel she was really underutilized and underserved with her even being there. I know that she had a good moment with Logan. To me, one of my favorite scenes was when she said that you were never the guy, or you were never the right guy, whatever she said. And that's true, and that's why he always steps up to be the hero that we all know him to be. But all that stuff around it does not work for me. So I'd like to hear how why it resonated with you.
Okay, so I gotta explain everything from my side. So the second Deadpool movie was affected by what was going on in the MCU. Logan came out, he died. What happens in this one? I want to die now. And so this whole...
He says, fuck Wolverine!
Yeah,
well, guess what, Wolverine? I'm going to die in this one, too.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
This whole convoluted plot happened all because of that. And I mean, it is weird because you spent the whole first movie being about, literally, it's a love story. He wants to get back with his girl, and then you kill her off in the second. And it's like, why? Why make that kind of story? And so I think the way how... when Logan came out, it really did affect the story for the second one. What's the biggest thing happening with the third one? Is Deadpool going to be in the MCU? Is it going to be solo? Is it going to be in the MCU? How is he going to get into the MCU and all that, blah, blah, blah. And so that affects Deadpool. He feels, because if he is not in the MCU, technically his whole existence, done. Like, he is no longer making these movies. Ryan Reynolds is no longer going to be Deadpool. And so that's how this whole story comes about. He literally goes to 616, tries to join the Avengers, and it doesn't work out. And so he starts to feel inadequate because there's not much else for him to do now. And so that affects his relationship because he thinks like, oh, she feels the same way like that I'm feeling and all that, blah, blah, blah. And so they break up. And so that's how this whole story starts. And then you get the scene with he goes to the TVA and they say, if you lost your anchor being, therefore your universe is going to disappear. But you're in the right moment in your time, they can come into the MCU. And so for one thing, the whole idea of the anchor point, weird. Like, what the heck? So if Iron Man is dead now, did we lose our anchor point?
I mean, you kind of create some plot holes for yourself, and wouldn't that be... Oh, God, what if they incorporate that into Doomsday? What if that's part of the reason why he's freaking Dr. Doom? Oh, my God.
Well, here's the thing. I'll get more into that in a second. But so he gets a chance to go into the MCU, and he goes, great, can my friends come? No. Why? It's like, well, it's going to get destroyed. You can have new ones once you get to that. He's like, no. And so now... It does become a fight for his existence, but mainly for his world. But the world being the friends around him. So for one thing, that right there already tells you like he's not going to be in the MCU because it doesn't matter whether or not he is going to be in the MCU. What's most important is the people around him, and that's what he's going to fight for. So that's sort of what happens. And so as the movie goes on, yes, I agree. There's some moments with the cameos. I like the what was it, Human Torch cameo and all that. It was all fun and everything and all that. But what gets important though is Deadpool realizing what it means to be a hero. Because that's what they tell him. He is not a hero. You're not the world saving type and everything. And that's what it was in the first Deadpool movie. You get that girl saying, "Hey, Wade, you're my hero." He's like, "No, I'm not." It's like, don't even put me in the concept of a hero. That there's a couple of lines like that. Second Deadpool movie, he sort of learns to be a hero. There's that speech moment with the 4 or 5 moments. And it's like at every moment where we kind of had to take things into our own hands and shoots the guy.
Right.
That's so fun. But he's not a full full-fledged hero, especially because this is actually something that bothers me in the second Deadpool movie. The only reason why he wants to save the kid is because he wants to die and be with Vanessa. And so I feel like he could have had a better reason to want to save the kid. I know, yes, technically he is still a good guy underneath and everything and all that, but I would...
Well, that's the only reason, though. He legitimately cares about the kid. Like, he actually, through the... Yes, that is the driving force for why he wants to save the kid. But in doing so, he realizes that he actually does care about him. And then, in turn, the kid cared about him as well.
He understands the kid, why he wants to do what he does and everything. But he still saves him because Vanessa says to. That's kind of how it goes. So... I mean, that's how and it's how he's able to connect with the kid because he understands what he's going through and everything and all that. And it's a nice moment and everything, but that's kind of how I saw it. That he just saved the kid because it's going to lead to his death. So,
but they also, as she says several times in the movie, it's like kids give us a chance to be better people than we were, to be better versions of ourselves. It's not so much about just that one specific kid, but it's about saving himself and then saving the world in a way. But I guess I see where you're coming from. Anyway, I don't want to relitigate that movie. Yeah. Although I will say, to relitigate the movie, I feel like if you seemingly seem to have had an issue with what happened with Vanessa in the second film, what they do with Vanessa in this movie seems even more contrived. And just why are we starting off at that place? Just because he's not a serious, like, superhero, which wasn't a problem for her at all in the past. Well, so why would that be a problem here?
Well, this is the issue.
Wait, hold on.
No.
Okay, wait.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. The thing, though, is like I said, him not being a full-fledged hero, not being part of a bigger thing, it's affecting him, and so it just affects his relationship.
Here's the thing. This is when I say it's too meta. Every relationship and thing, like you're talking about, like, oh, how it represents this, I agree, but it's too meta, like it's to the point where the only reason it makes sense is because of the meta narrative and not the narrative itself. It doesn't make sense that everything with him of like, oh, I want to be a hero, I want to be an Avenger, and da-da-da-da, and that's why it fucked up my relationship with Vanessa. That doesn't make sense to the character.
Look where we left him in Deadpool 2.
It doesn't. It
doesn't at all.
Okay.
He's like, whatever. You know who wants to be an Avenger? Ryan Reynolds. You know who wants that shit? Ryan Reynolds. You know?
But the whole story is that it doesn't matter whether he's in the MCU or not, though. He doesn't end up.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's the whole meta narrative isn't even meta. It's just the narrative. The meta narrative is just the narrative, and the actual narrative doesn't make sense because of it. The actual narrative comes second, basically, which I don't think is true of the first two movies. I think the characters and the relationships within them work on their own.
No, it doesn't.
And then if you want to extract stuff, whereas I think with this movie, it doesn't really fully work on its own. Like the fact that he even has an interview with, what's his name?
Happy
Hogan literally makes no sense. He's not in that universe, and they even spell it out that he's not in that universe. But they wanted... It just reminds me of The Rock trying to force his way into a Superman movie. It just feels like Ryan Reynolds trying to force himself into an Avengers film, which he's gonna be there. Don't worry.
Yeah, he's gonna be there because of Kevin Feige. But like the story he's trying to tell,
that's the way it feels like.
But the story he's trying to tell though is that he doesn't. It doesn't matter whether he's the MCU in the MCU or not. So you can't say that he wants to be in the MCU. But the whole plot is about him not. Doesn't matter, but he's in the MCU.
At the end of the movie, that's when I feel that the point that you're making is clear.
You're saying is meta, and it's not specific to like these characters and what they want. Deadpool as a character does not make sense to want to be an Avenger. Like, I'm sorry, they're just way too vague as far as what the issues were between him and Vanessa and him wanting more. What does that mean? you know. And again, I think a scene or two here could have really illuminated it and made it work, but they didn't have time for that, you know. We needed a fucking 10
We didn't have time for any of the supporting cast.
10-minute interview where we see Avengers memorabilia from all the films.
The Deadpool films have an amazing
Kevin Feige
supporting cast, and they got like 2 scenes here, and that was it.
Yeah, the movie just doesn't have a good ratio of like the meta fourth wall breaking commentary on the MCU and movie and films itself to like actual comedic bits and jokes about the story itself. And also narratively, it's the same issue.
So I guess here's where here are the 2 different points of view that I'm hearing here. David, at the end of the day, what you're saying is that the meta-ness itself moves forward the overall themes and messages in terms of Deadpool's whole arc in this film, and that's why it worked for you. I get what you're saying, that where we end the film, I guess I can see where you're coming from, how it definitely pushed in that direction. Where Peter comes from the point is, where we begin the film, the meta-ness already begins to mess things up, where it doesn't make sense for the characters as we knew them to be in the previous installments. And in that way, it's getting in the way of the film, because it's forcing things that are not naturally a continuation of what would have come. Right?
Funnily enough, if the film actually did the opposite, with him wanting to be an Avenger or wanting to be an X-Men, I actually think that would work more fluidly with his whole arc, as far as what do you call it? From the first film and the second film.
But he didn't want to be an X-Men, though. Why would he want to be in the Avengers?
He didn't. Exactly. He didn't want to be an X-Men in the second one. Why is he starting wanting to be an Avenger in the third one?
Because his existence is like
but there you go. That's what I'm saying.
That's not true. Wait a minute. Wait. That's not true. Before we even get there, before Matthew McFadden even comes into the picture, he's, from what I assume anyway, he's messing around with Cable's thing, and somehow, because he's doing time travel, he gets into into the MCU proper, and he has that interview, and then he gets rejected. He comes back to his timeline, and then years pass by. Vanessa leaves him, and then he feels purposeless. And then that's when Matthew McFadden comes in and then informs him about all this different. Like, we begin the movie basically with him having an interview, and then he leaves the interview, and then years pass by, and he doesn't know that the universe is being destroyed until like years later.
Here's what works better, which is like a complete opposite of what his arc is. Because you remember, Vanessa was pregnant in the second one.
No,
she wasn't.
They were trying to get.
She was trying to get. The factory was open. Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, you could have a whole Pixar up thing of like either they lost the kid or it's like, yeah, it's not going to happen, and he's just kind of aimless and purposeless because of that. And she's sort of like, it hits her hard too. It creates a strain in their relationship. And her whole thing is like, you know, you don't want more, you know, you're just listless, aimless, whatever. And that's what sort of breaks them up. And then throughout the film, he's sort of like, yeah, like grows to be more purposeful, you know, in that way. And then by the end, you know, you can have that interview of him in the Avengers. And maybe it still doesn't go well, but you know, he's trying. He wants something more. He wants to be a hero, right? The first movie, he don't want to be a hero. The second movie, he kind of got a taste of it as far as like taking care of that kid. And then maybe by the third one, full blown, it's like, yeah, I want to be a hero. Whereas this one, it substituted what Ryan wants for what Deadpool wants, and it doesn't work. Because, like, yeah, of course Ryan Reynolds wants to be an X-Men, and he would want all that big money shit. But you don't have Deadpool acting like that in the first movie. Deadpool's like, I don't give a fuck about you Boy Scouts, you know, I'm just trying to kill these people. And with here, it's the opposite. It's he's immediately like, oh boy, like yes. It's too much of a character switch, and especially in a film that doesn't really focus on the motivations as much as it should.
And it focuses too much on the fact that, hey guys, we're in the MCU now, isn't that great? And then we have like basically like over 50. But but they don't. Here's my problem. They're not funny, David. I don't care for them. I don't think they're servicing anything. It's like, yeah, I get that that's how the movie was like conceived, but it's like just because. Oh yay, we're in the MCU now, and isn't it great? And it's funny. It doesn't work.
You guys keep saying that, yeah, we're in the MCU. The whole point is that it doesn't matter whether he is in MCU or not. And I understand that, like, the whole meta.
It's very hollow when the whole movie is about celebrating being in the MCU.
But they're not in the MCU, and it's been celebrating the Fox MCU.
No, it's not. The whole movie is a big like dick wagging, going like, "Yep, we're in the MCU, we're doing it," and so it just rings really hollow, that ending, because it's like, well, no, it's just against everything that this movie is like oozing, basically.
I really don't understand you guys. Because again,
is Deadpool gonna be in Secret Wars?
Yeah, but
are all the X-Men going to be in Secret Wars?
Yes, but
so they're in the MCU.
The movie doesn't tell you that's gonna happen, and the movie.
But it's going to happen.
It doesn't.
So it's like when Spider-Man, his whole thing was about learning to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and then went on to just be in big Avenger movies.
Sorry, what was your point with that?
I hate it. That's the fucking point. It's completely contradictory. They don't mean anything.
Wait. You didn't like
that? That's a larger thing.
Sorry,
that's a larger thing with the MCU.
He wanted to be an Avenger, and then at the end learned that.
And then he just went on to be an Avenger anyway.
No, in Homecoming it was fine, but then they used him and they put him in outer space, and it kind of betrays what it was trying to say in Homecoming. Peter's overall point is, it doesn't matter what they say. Marvel doesn't keep their word. They just change it up movie to movie to movie. There's no consistency to that point.
Yeah, that I understand. But either way, though, this is what the story is trying to tell you on this one.
Okay, my issue with this one, though, is its inconsistency with the first two as far as the character.
I can understand that it's a bit of a leap. But either way, though, your story...
It's entirely... involved as far as Ryan's ambitions as being in the MCU, and not Deadpool as a character. And where he
I think a bigger problem is the fact that so much of the narrative is so much of the movie is consumed with making jokes about that and again, this film is largely dependent on how, humorous it is or not, and I think it just falls flat and leaves a bad taste in my mouth. To me, that's the bigger fucking problem, in comparison to everything else that we've been talking about. Is like, so much of it's way too meta, and I think it, like, how I feel anyway, and I think what Peter said is that it is so consumed with being overly meta that's all the humor Deadpool brings in the film, where it wasn't always just about that. Yeah, and let's be real here, there are far, far better meta jokes in the first two films than there are here, if that's what we're comparing it to. But Deadpool always had a far more variety of humor unto himself than just calling attention to, the behind the scenes stuff. Like, what is, like, even in Deadpool 2, he was like, he looked at the screen and he said, well, Deadpool outgrows Passion of the Christ overseas when there is no such thing as religion. That's funny. That works. What in this film compares to that, as far as a humor standpoint is concerned? And that's the problem for me, because so much of the film is consumed with bringing attention to that. And if you're not going to be funny about it and you become annoying as a result of it, it hinders you. That's where I come from. I don't know if that's what you guys are talking about. I think we're kind of getting lost. I'm getting a little bit lost.
We weren't even talking about the humor. We were talking about the story.
I know. But that's why I stopped you guys. And I wanted to explain why the meta-ness doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. But I'll let you guys go back to what you were talking about.
Well,
I think a lot of the meta humor is funny. It's just overwhelms the film. Whereas I think there was a much better balance in the first and second. But I
can agree with that. That's why I said that I like the first one better, because there's not really too much meta with that one. With the first one, the only big thing I can think of was when he was like, "Hell yeah, I finally have my own movie" and all that. But other than that, I can't really think of.
Well, I think
else.
a lot of the humor, like in the first one, when he's running around killing people, like screaming like Francis, you know. Yeah, it's a lot of like character specific. And when in this movie, when there is character specific humor, that's like the funniest shit to me. Like the way he got Nice Pool killed just to get his guns, you know.
Yeah.
And the dog
stuff like that. I think really works. But there's just a lot less of it because we have to make time for going like, holy shit, it's the thing, you know.
Okay. Well, in terms of the meta in this, I forgot where I left off. I know.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I mean,
By the way, one of the bigger laughs in the whole movie was the whole Predator joke.
That was another one that's really funny.
Predator?
I laughed really hard at that one.
At the TVA.
Where he's like, just so you know, your tailor is a predator.
Oh.
but
No,
that was another really good one.
the biggest laugh for me was that there's only ever been one blade. There's only ever going to be one blade. And
That was funny, but it was also, I mean, part of why it was funny because like, what, I know what it's supposed to mean, but like, how did that get through?
yeah.
And it also just feels like, who is that joke for? Especially when Marvel can't get a fucking Blade movie made. Like, I know that's the joke and it's funny and we get it, but it also, again, called attention to just the overly meta-ness of it. And I think here's where that also became a problem. And I think Peter actually mentioned this when we talked about it after, when we first saw it, is Deadpool is the only one that's supposed to be meta.
Yeah.
But in that moment,
all the other characters don't act like they're characters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them act like the actors acknowledging that they're the character.
that wasn't Blade. That was Wesley Snipes.
Yes.
That was legitimately Wesley Snipes, as in Jennifer Gardner, and like they didn't feel like they were playing characters. They felt like they were actors knowingly playing the characters that you all, the audience, know where they come from, and that's what makes it feel like less of a movie and more
of an
like
SNL skit. Yeah, like everything with what's his name, who played Rambo.
You mean
Monica Rambeau?
Gambit?
Or
Oh.
No.
wait, what? You said Rambo.
You guys, yes.
Oh, like
You guys don't know X-Men. What's his name?
Gambit?
Cards.
okay,
Gambit.
Gambit.
His name
Gambit,
is
yeah,
Rambo.
Channing Tatum.
Oh, his
Yeah,
name was-
Channing Tatum.
Oh, I guess not. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
What's his name? Channing Tatum didn't seem like he was playing Gambit. He seemed like he was playing Channing Tatum in an SNL skit as Gambit. And that's what all the other actors, because they're actors talking about like, oh, people forgot us, and we need this moment as like redemption to have a moment back. And it's like, it literally just, it sounds like the actors talking about it's too meta, you know. It only works if these characters act like the characters. If they act like the actors just saying shit, it doesn't work. That's why the best stuff,
it's relying on you knowing this history. If you don't know it,
it's just winking at you and going, you know this, right? And that's the worst kind of humor and storytelling. That's why the best stuff with Logan Wolverine is when he's just acting like the character. You know, when he's dealing with his pain, or when he blows up on Deadpool and stuff like that. That's the best stuff. But even Laura just comes off like the actress, like saying like, yeah, you were a hero in that movie, Logan. Like that's the way it comes off. She doesn't come off like the actual character herself. And that's the stuff that bothers me, because it kind of fucks up the Deadpool formula. Deadpool only works because he's the only one that can break the fourth wall and is able to acknowledge this shit. Whereas everyone else acts as the characters that they are. And this one, like, everyone's Deadpool. And as far as acknowledging and understanding the fourth wall.
yeah, basically. That's it brings it down so much that there's not much left that feels much like much of a film, quite honestly with you. And it makes it kind of feel like, well, I would have far preferred a Deadpool 3 with 20th Century Fox if it was still a thing that existed than this. And it also just once again becomes yet another piece of this Kevin Feige puzzle that is becoming just more and more, not even just kind of listless or aimless, but it just feels like the powers that be, Kevin Feige specifically, no longer have any skills as to how to make a movie.
That's the thing. I really enjoyed so much of this film. My issues are that it doesn't feel like a film. And it kind of reminds me of Doctor Strange or the Multiverse of Madness, where it's like, man, there's a lot of moments that I fucking love in this movie because Sam Raimi's so good. But it feels just like such a hodgepodge of shit thrown together, right? Like it doesn't really come together for me like a film should. And what sucks is either Marvel has been releasing films that feel like hodgepodges and suck, or feel like hodgepodges and have really awesome moments sprinkled here and there. But I can't remember the last time where it's like, man, that felt like a movie. You know what I mean? The way Iron Man did, the original Iron Man, the way I guess Guardians of the Galaxy, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, there's a lot of cool, crazy stuff, and it almost, sort of buckles under the weight of so much going on, but it still feels like it's a film telling a story about these characters, and there's like a structure and shit like that. Whereas so much of the recent stuff just feels like fan moments written on like sticky notes, and then like loose scenes written the day of they're filming to sort of stitch them together.
Which we know they do a lot.
Which is literally what they fucking do. Yeah. Spider-Man felt that same way.
Tom Holland even said that on the day they would change it up. On Doctor Strange, Sam Raimi wouldn't even have a script, and he would shoot because it would be rewritten on the spot.
Script every day written on the spot. They didn't know how the movie. They never.
Taika Waititi changed a scene several times a year apart, and like all of these films have the exact same problems.
Yeah.
This is why we say that the filmmaking process that Marvel Studios employs is flawed so deeply that that's what's most responsible for the films no longer hitting. For those of you out there out there in the internet wondering why aren't these movies hitting as much anymore, because they don't feel like movies, and they're not made to feel that way anymore because the team no longer has that ability. That's just and it's not for all of these other, all these other reasons. There are other reasons for why they're not working as much as they used to be, but a big part of it, and it's not being covered, is, well, maybe because that Marvel Studios isn't alone in this process of making movies. That's just most studios these days, and that's what's led to, creatively bankrupt blockbusters more than anything else.
And that's why I say, like, I don't hate the movie. In fact, I like a lot about the movie. It definitely feels like a movie that I can throw on and like have on, and whenever there's the moments that I like come on, like stop what I'm doing and watch it, because it is Deadpool. And if there's any character that I think is allowed to feel a bit like a hodgepodge of references and bullshit, it is Deadpool. And maybe I wouldn't be as harsh if not for every fucking film that has released, comic book movie that has released since Endgame, and just everything that has happened with the multiverse shit since Endgame. Maybe I'd be a little more I wouldn't feel. I'll be like, well, it's kind of too loosey goosey, but it's Deadpool, and I can have fun with it.
David, did you feel that your audience was engaged and excited? I felt like mine was like half engaged and half just kind of there. We can get shitty audiences sometimes.
We
can, but that's true. I really do wonder how. We are like 4 years removed from Endgame. I really wonder what toll this is taking. On audience's patience. Out of the top of your head, How many comic book movies can you think of since 2019 that are legitimately great? Live action, I should say. Both of you. Guardians, that's one. The Suicide Squad, that's the other James Gunn one.
Mm-hmm.
James Gunn is cute. See, that's another movie. There's like so much like fan stuff in there, if you know these characters in the comics, but it still feels as if it's a film. And I know that's such it's like a very broad, dumb phrase to say. It's harder for me to explain it. That's why I say like SNL sketch. Like it feels like just a series of comedy sketches by actors. The joke is that the actors know that they're the actors. Whereas in Deadpool 1 and 2, it felt like a film with just a character that breaks the fourth wall. But
and naturally,
same story
we should mention the Batman.
The Batman, yes.
Oh, yes.
Those are my three. There's maybe more. I don't fucking know.
And I mean live action. We don't animated, but we have Spider-Verse. In the animated
let's stick
realm.
to live action because.
But with live action, I what else is? I mean,
Superman Lois. That's live action.
I mean, well, the movies.
The movies. You know what you're doing, sir. The movies. Yeah, I can't think of any where it's like.
How many bad ones can you think of though since 2019?
Oh, Eternals.
Yes, but that's one movie. How many bad movies can you name since like the comic books?
Man, there's a
Black
lot.
Widow. That's really the first thing that pops to mind.
What about The Flash?
Oh,
the
The
Flash
Flash
is god awful.
The Flash was bad. To me, it's like that was like one of the worst experiences. Like you and I, Peter, watched that together, and I felt like we were being like sucked out of any kind of joy or energy. That was a really horrendous experience. Such an abysmal movie.
Maybe that's another reason why I'm so like positive to a certain extent on Deadpool and Wolverine, because I've seen the worst version of what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Like having Channing Tatum come in with the costume and giving that shitty accent, and doing cool fight scenes. That's a million times better than the fucking monstrosity at the end of that third act of like what they did with past characters and the cameos, which is just like looked like CGI AI monstrosities.
Yeah.
Like, that's the bottom of the fucking barrel of what... And it's such an ugly film. So that's another thing. Like, visually, I'm not saying Deadpool and Wolverine is the greatest, but there's a lot of fun camera tricks they do, especially with the action. I'm always going to be a sucker for the fucking old boy slide-style action thing. And then, but that film, fuck, it's ugly. The Flash. Really ugly film. Can't say enough bad things about it.
I mean, speaking of ugliness, I mean, David brought it up. Black Widow is pretty ugly too.
No, yeah.
Black Widow is very ugly. But there's also, again, those Marvel films where it's like, it's just nothing. And it's like, there's nuggets here where I could see it being really awesome and I really love it. But just the way these films are made just holds it back entirely. Like Shang-Chi. Or even like...
Oh, Ant-Man was really ugly and really bad. That might be the worst.
That one was the worst, yeah. I think that was where Marvel even realized. I think that's when Kevin Feige realized, like, oh, like, I suck now. let me hit the emergency Robert Downey Jr. button.
That's probably why he let Ryan Reynolds do whatever he want on Deadpool and Wolverine, and why he got so meta, maybe, too. Because he was just kind of like, I shouldn't touch it.
Yeah, I think... With certain people, he's like, they've had success before. I'll trust them. And I think Ryan Reynolds was one of the people. And by the way, Ryan Reynolds has proved himself very much. This movie made over $200 million opening weekend, rated R. That's insane. You know how many little kids went to go see a rated R movie this past week? That's so fucking funny. It had 110
I wonder how many parents were surprised
on it. I think that's the thing, right? I haven't heard many stories, but it's like, it's a Wolverine movie, right? So a lot of parents are like, oh, Wolverine, the kid superhero, okay. And then they take their kid and it's like,
I mean, to be fair,
hey,
though,
fuckers, you fucking slut bonger, penis, whatever,
I feel like this was less R-rated than the other two movies, especially in the first one where you had the one scene.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, because like, I mean, in the first one you had the whole sexcapade with the two of them and everything. And then also the biggest standout, dude, it was so funny. My aunt was like walking by my room as I was watching the first Deadpool movie, and it was this one scene where he just kept cussing and cussing. Was when they took Vanessa, and I was just like, hey, let me pause this real quick. And so yeah, that was funny. And I mean, the biggest standout for the cussing was was it like F her the F up, and he's like, language sakaka. And it's just like, that was funny. So,
there was that really gross, uncomfortable moment in Deadpool 2 where he's growing legs and
you see, yeah,
that's funny.
That was a good joke. I like that one. Yeah, I don't know. They go pretty far here.
I
mean, there's literally like a hand job joke where when he uses Wolverine's bone to like hit one of the guards, he slowly slides it down. He hits him in the, like,
I forgot.
Yeah, they go pretty far, I think. There's just less like overt like sex stuff, like naked people, you know what I mean? That seems to be the kind of thing that they don't want to go far. That's also an American thing. Americans have a weird thing with.
I gotta ask. We have to have this conversation before we finish talking about the movie because we spent a lot of time in the beginning.
Wait, real quick. The Wolverine suit, amazing.
Yes.
Is this what you're gonna talk about? Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's what I was saying because we spent so much time talking about the Superman costume. Well, we can't not talk about the Wolverine costume here.
Amazing. I loved it, and I am one of those. Again, I'm one of those overly critical nerds who's like, I need the white eyes, and I think it's so stupid how they do not include the white eyes. Batman, I think, has never looked 100% perfect in live action because he's never had the white eyes. So many superheroes give them the white eyes. Everyone's wondering, why does the Flash suit suck in live action? Maybe if you gave him the white eyes, it would pull the suit together. I really think so. And I felt that Deadpool, to me, vindicated that. But with Wolverine, it's super vindicated that to me. Because the Wolverine costume is very goofy. It's weird. Like it has like the black like
like it looked
things.
To me, it looked great in the like killing all the Deadpools and everything. Like awesome.
Oh, it looked amazing.
But in that moment where they were having that, before Wade sacrifices himself and they were having the like little heart to heart, I was like, I think you can take off the mask in this moment. Like
I was gonna say, I'm totally cool with them. Like, I know it's in their contracts; they got to show the face.
Yeah,
that's fine. Like that's why I'm fine with the whole Iron Man. You want to lift the mask up when you're having like conversations. That's
you mean
fine.
CGI it off?
No, see, that's the thing. I'm talking about like Iron Man 1 and 2.
Yeah,
because it looks amazing when it like flips up in like Iron Man 1 and he has those conversations. That's when it works. So I'm fine with them like taking off the mask to have their their heart to hearts, and then once the action starts, exactly how they did it in the movie, like it looked amazing. Again, the one thing that I had issues with was that the blue like collars. I don't know why they removed them, because the official costume is like the blue collars things, and then the open arms, and then the gloves, and then the mask. And they have the blue collars in the costume when he doesn't have the mask on, but then when like he gets his sleeves ripped off, they rip off the blue collars. But I've seen images of like promotional stuff where they have it with them on, and it's like to a T 100% perfect. What you see in the movie is like 99% perfect, but then you see that image and it's like, oh, it's 100% perfect.
Would you prefer if they had the costume where they had the Wolverine versus Hulk?
That should look cool.
That one looked really cool.
I that's like his original costume, the brown and yellow. I like the blue and yellow the best.
Yeah, it does stand out more, but I was just curious.
It's my favorite. To me, that's Wolverine.
It looked great.
Them. Yeah,
the whole time. I was, wow, that actually really looks really, really good. And I was waiting for the cowl. Then it was at the third act.
I completely forgot about it until he actually puts it on in that fight scene, and I was just like, oh my god, freaking out.
Sure. I would have been a little disappointed, but I know You're gonna see plenty of it in Secret Wars.
So, at one point, there were supposed to be the whole X-Men here, right?
Right? Or maybe that was all of... No, because I feel... You know what? I think they changed a lot of the story. I really think they do. They did. They changed a lot of what they were going to do. Because remember, they were going to bring back the other actor who played... what's his name?
Scott? Cyclops?
No. I'm so bad with remembering names.
The character or the actor? Just pick one, and maybe we can work from there.
Character. Sabretooth. The actor that played him in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Remember, they had like
Liev Schreiber?
Liev Schreiber. They had a whole Zoom call with Liev Schreiber talking about how he's going to appear in the movie. I remember that. And he is not in the movie. So yeah, I think they went through a lot. And I don't know how much this movie was affected by the strikes. Because I think they were at some level of production during the strikes.
They were forced to shut down.
There you go. But see, that's another thing. A lot of people are like, oh man, it's this beautiful homage to Fox X-Men and those, Marvel films of the early 2000s. Yes. And also, I would have felt that more if you brought in the other X-Men actually.
That's what I mean. It's I think that's what was missing. If you were going to go this way, why not just go all the way with it, It's missing for sure. I needed me some Halle Berry and... Especially because James so much
Marsden.
Exactly, because so much of Logan's thing is like apparently he caused them all to die. I thought there was going to be a scene where they were all going to come.
Yeah, they should have at least been a flashback or something.
There was even a dream sequence where he's like, I want to say, or Emma Corrin is looking into him. I thought that was where they were going to have that moment happen.
I think it's a missed opportunity for sure. Especially if you frame the film as like a love letter.
Exactly.
To that era of Marvel films. It's weird. Yeah.
Anything else to say about this movie?
I've been overly negative, I think, but I enjoyed it. I genuinely did. I'd watch it again.
David?
No, yeah. Like I said, I love the movie. I actually never really answered your question as to why I was so excited by those cameos, but
I mean, it's obvious. It's because you grew up in the films. You love the,
but to me,
nostalgia,
narrative. Like I said, I mentioned in the beginning though, like I did love this movie because of the meta-ness of it, and so if someone's like, I mean, well, like what you said, fuck you for that. Fine, I'm perfectly okay with that. I understand, and there's so many problems with this movie. Like I said. Them bringing back X-23, but it's the X-23 from the Logan movie, which makes no sense because...
I mean, is it?
It made it seem like it was.
She's not a forgotten character, basically.
Yeah, it's like I just there's a lot of things I can. I mean, if I did like an audio commentary, I can point out all the things wrong with it, but also be pointing out some of the things why I love it. But in terms of like the whole cameos of it, to me, I just thought it was symbolic of this whole. You had a character Blade who had a franchise of his own, but didn't end well. Then you had Elektra, who going to start a franchise or at least some sort of trilogy, but never got a chance to because the first one sucked. And then you had a character who never got a chance at all. And so it was just sort of this thing of like fighting again. That's what I mentioned at the beginning. It's like it's sort of this thing of like fighting for their existence and everything, fighting for an ending, because that is what, again, in the middle of this, that is what Ryan Reynolds is fighting for too. At the end, is that he gets to have an ending, like a happy ending. Because who knows what's going to happen with the MCU? Because there was a moment where this movie wasn't probably going to get made, especially because I mean they couldn't even figure out whether or not whether to make this movie R-rated or not, which was like ridiculous to begin with. Like it's Deadpool, you make it R, like no discussion.
They did take a while deciding what they wanted to do with that, huh?
Yeah, and so
took their sweet time.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end of it,
I always knew it'd get made, though. I mean, they're taking their sweet time with literally fucking everything.
True,
they
but
really fucked up.
Well, to be fair, now I think they should be made to take their time now.
No, but they take their time because they're making so much shit that it takes forever to come back around to shit they set up a long time ago.
True.
Yeah. So it's the worst of both worlds. If they were taking their time, like really focusing in on just a few key projects to make them the best they can, then it'd be like, oh, okay, at least that's awesome. But they weren't. They were just throwing shit at the wall.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then I like the ending of it where he becomes a world-saving type of hero, and he now becomes the anchor point for that universe. That's kind of what I got from it. And so if they're going to bring this up in Secret Wars, I think that's what's going to be, like, who is going to be the next anchor point. And I hope they leave it open-ended, not like... I'm
going to guess you never hear the phrase anchor point ever again.
That too. I think that's going to happen too. But if by some chance they want to bring it up in Secret Wars, have it be that, they lost their anchor point, which is Iron Man. They need a new one, but keep it open-ended as to who it is so that we're not like, oh no, we don't want them to die. Or, they're probably going to die.
Yeah. No. I think they're going to go in a whole other direction.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I don't want to hear anchor points anymore.
The whole anchor point thing is just a very meta commentary on the fact that Wolverine was the biggest star. Logan Wolverine was the biggest star in the X-Men Fox universe. Yeah. And then now he's dead, and now the universe is dead. Mm-hmm. Technically. Yeah. That's kind of what it was.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So with all that being said, I'll go watch it again and I'll see how I feel. But with Deadpool and Wolverine off to the side, we should talk about the news that was made with Comic-Con with Marvel. Here's the thing. I think this is now the third Comic-Con in a row where Marvel Studios has proclaimed some quote-unquote exciting stuff. And we walk away, some of us anyway, feeling so underwhelmed and already knowing. I feel like these Comic-Cons, they've taken the opportunity to announce how bad it's going to be. Even though that's not how it's framed, and that's not how it's received. Every time they go there and the fans are like, have such fanfare. But then when the films themselves come out, they're not that great. And they're like, but what happened? Back in 2019, after coming off of Endgame, that's where they had that big Comic-Con where they announced all these Disney Plus shows. That's where they first announced Mahershala Ali was playing Blade, and that they're going to make a Blade movie. And remember how exciting that was for people, but we came on here on the show and we told you, this is not going to go that well because, number one, there seems to be no clear vision or storyline or through line with any of these projects. Number two, they quadrupled the amount of things they were making. Now they were branching out into making all these TV shows, and that's also not very good. So, and then what came to fruition was exactly what we feared would be the case, and things went downhill pretty quickly. Then I want to say in 2022, they announced, I forget what it was, but they announced, that's where they announced. First, it was called the Kang Dynasty?
Yeah.
And then it was Secret Wars. And that was the big announcement then. But then Peter and I were like, what do you mean you're doing Secret Wars already? And I think that's when they announced that, Phase 4 is over. Oops. Now we're in Phase 5. If I'm not mistaken, didn't the first movie that opened Phase 5 was Quantumania?
I think so.
Yeah.
So now here we are with the, because the last Comic-Con in 2022, that was supposed to be the one that, okay guys, we're going to do the reset button. Scratch that. Now, here in 2024, now we're doing the reset button. And what's the reset button? We got the Russos back, and we got Robert Downey Jr. back, but not as Iron Man, but we got him as Dr. Doom. And of course, as per usual, and I think Double Toasted had the best reaction to this, of course, everybody was screaming and oh my God. But of course, as the dust settles, even before then, we were like, there's so much to process here, and all at the same time, not really anything to process. The point that I bring up the other Comic Cons to compare to this one is to say, I think it's the same result. This is, I mean, I can't say that these Avengers films aren't going to make money. They're going to make $1 billion a piece for sure. And I got to tell you, as far as, I think they might have been okay if they had just left it with the Russos or doing the Avengers, and that might have worked. Not to say that it still can't, but them announcing RDJ, speaking of Deadpool and Wolverine going too far, I think they went too far here, and I think almost immediately there was like a what? And in the days to come, I don't think the news has really aged all that well with this decision, especially because when you think about, okay, well, what does this mean? Is this really Doctor Doom, or is this an Iron Man variant that's just Doctor Doom in name only? Right? So it's like, this was, yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Peter.
Yeah,
Take us.
I mean, this was my worry, and it's, yeah, they really fucked this up. Mm-hmm. They spent all this time building up Kang. Oh, Kang, we're gonna get with Kang.
Well,
and then now...
wait, hold up, David. Wait, go ahead.
Just to give him the benefit of the doubt, there was some problems with the actor.
No.
Wait,
yeah, for sure. I'm not putting that on them. I'm saying the way that they're course correcting is shitty.
Okay.
Well, remove Jonathan Majors' problems. How they used the character in the movies, I think it universally was just rejected. I'm sorry, it just didn't work. After
the movies
Loki
just sucked. That's the thing.
Because I feel like there could have been
That's
a version
the issue
where like you could have
the character wasn't an issue. Yeah,
because I feel like you could have had a really cool idea if he was actually like the villain in every other like Marvel movie that came out. Because imagine like, you know, with Ant-Man Quantumania, imagine Ant-Man is fighting him and he actually stays in the quantum realm where like he cannot get back. We just lost now another...
let's say every villain of that phase is literally a Kang variant,
and someone either
they're
dies
fucking taking
or
over,
gets injured or something because of him, and now when they're facing off someone who is like the highest of the Kang army or dynasty, I guess you can say, they're like,
that requires forethought though.
Yeah, I know, but I
didn't
came up
have
with that as I was watching Quantumania, and I'm like, how could you not read the script here and go, I think we have something here or something like that, you know? Like, so
it's because they wrote the script David, while they were filming
read a script.
it.
Which version of the script?
So
it hasn't been written
they don't
yet.
Have scripts.
They don't even watch it until it comes out on theaters. I forgot about that. Oh my god.
So it's so stupid. No, but yeah, there was a way that they could make Kang work, especially because Jonathan Majors is an amazing actor. Mm-hmm. Despite everything going on there, you know, people can do bad things, be bad people, and still be incredibly talented in many other ways. I hate when people try to deny that, because all that means is you give cover for talented people to act awful, which you shouldn't. This is the worst course correction, because they hit the panic button and they'll go, we'll go Doom, but you're not even going to introduce Doom. You're giving zero time to build up Doom as a character, and he's the villain of Marvel. Everyone loves Doom. Doom is the guy. He is the Darth Vader of Marvel. And not only that, you cast the cast. It's stunt casting. It's
so tone deaf. I gotta tell you.
It just
read the
tells
room,
everyone that the character is not going to be its own character. Everything about the character is going to be how it relates back to Iron Man, which has never ever been Doom. Never. A lot of people were like, "Oh, actually, this one random issue, what if?" And it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, Doom as a character has always been his own, and it just feels like they keep rushing shit, and then because they're rushing it, they fuck it up, and then they have to continue to course correct, and that really makes me worried about like the X-Men, because like, what are they gonna rush with the X-Men to try and get something going with them? Because it feels the same with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four probably should have been like their first film of following Endgame. Honest to God, it really should have been. Oh, actually, you know what? They didn't. I don't think they'd bought Fox yet, though. So I guess
they did. No, they did. Well, the deal was finalized late 2017, early 2018. But I'm sure they.
Okay, yeah. But they could have gotten. They could have started to get a script going. Yeah.
Right, and then don't forget, Dark Phoenix also came out 2019. So there was still a bit of a window where they couldn't quite immediately act on those characters because there still needed to be expiration of all these different rights. I think.
Yeah.
But they could have been beginning the process of getting a damn script ready for it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, I think by 2019,
look at what they did to Blade. Come on.
Well, that's the thing. But by 2019, I think they were good to go, and it's now 2024, and it's gonna come out 2025.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, go ahead.
All of it is just. Here's the thing. I no longer care about the universe as a whole.
And it's been that way for a while.
It's that way for a while. But you can still make individual films that are good, and I'm interested, and I like, and I'll go see. Fantastic Four is one of them, because they are Marvel's first family. They are it, you know? And so, to a certain extent, I'm looking forward to...
Can Matt Shackman deliver that, though? I'm sorry, should I say Kevin Feige delivered that, though? This is what happens. In theory, individual films should be able to work, but how can they work
then they
when Kevin Feige
them.
is... Yeah.
Like they're doing with Doom, and just turning it into another... They took an entire character that should absolutely stand on its own, and then just turned it into another... Oh, look. It's a connection to a character I already know. And
I still can't believe it.
These things stand on their
own. Sorry. I still can't believe how we're not all universally dogpiling on Kevin Feige for hiring a TV director to do the Fantastic Four.
He doesn't want to hire like experienced directors or experienced writers. It's very clear.
Well, because they're going to be too
expensive. Why? Because they might
spending all the money on RDJ.
No, it's not.
Well,
I don't even think it's the money.
Maybe in part that's the reason, but it's more because they're going to actually want to do something creatively interesting, and he can't be bothered.
He needs to have easy final cut of every single little thing, and the way we've talked about this endlessly, but the way they film things, it's like a conveyor belt. So that they can make changes digitally up until the very last fucking minute. That's why everything is green screen, and to an ugly degree. That's why I pointed out the way Superman just finished filming, and then it's gonna have a year of post production, whereas the Fantastic Four is barely gonna start filming, and they're gonna release at the same time. Who knows what reshoots and stuff they might do as they try and scramble and get together this whole fucking Secret Wars thing storyline that they want to go with. It's just everything. Nothing makes me excited about it because it just reeks of desperation. It doesn't tell me they have a story or something interesting to say by hiring Robert Downey Jr. to play him. It really just does feel like they're throwing shit at the wall. Like, not excited at all.
And it's like, Robert Downey Jr. is a great actor. We all love him. And this is not to say that he can't deliver a good performance, but this isn't really about that now, is it? It's more about the thinking that went into getting to this point in the first place. I mean, for Robert Downey Jr., this is a paycheck. And I just think that it's funny how all of a sudden no one is really paying that much or any attention to a lot of the shady stuff he said while he was campaigning to win an Oscar. About how he was saying that he was in the Marvel machine for so long that he forgot that he could act.
Here's the thing. He likes money far more than he likes being an actor.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, I don't fucking blame him. Of course, you're telling you read the deal. Over 80 million.
Significantly more than $80 million.
Private jet, fucking. Yeah, I mean, of course. You giving me that deal? Hell yeah, I'm taking it. You know,
the Russos are making 80. are making $80 million off of these movies.
Think about that, though. This is where I'm saying, like, I genuinely think actors themselves are underpaid. Movie stars are overpaid, significantly overpaid. Like, look at how much of the budget is just gone.
For one actor.
For one actor.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to the directors, and then now it's like, let's say that's 80 million for both of them, right? The directors get 80, and then is it 80 each? Because it's two people. I don't know. And then of course you got Robert Downey Jr. How much is that? Let me do the math.
That's a lot of money. We don't even have a definite figure for Robert Downey Jr. They only told us it was significantly higher than $80 million. But for each film or all for both movies? I thought it was $80 million for both.
I think it's across both. But still, let's say that's both over 40 million
each
going
movie
to one actor, and then that's 80 million for one movie, right?
Yeah.
For the actors and that one actor, that's more than most. That's the budget just for them. But that also doesn't take into account their extras, because in his sweetheart deal, he also gets like a fucking a private jet, like all kinds of other shit. I'm pretty sure that's not included in the 80 million. 80 million is just the take home. All that other stuff, it gets added on top, you know? So it's like I would guess closer to like 90 or 100 million.
I think the calculus is, let's just be real about this. It feels desperate because it is desperate. I think we're beginning to see in real time the desperation of Kevin Feige, and I feel like he has all too slowly realized that we're now in a place where there's been some significant harm to the MCU brand, and he needs a really big win. The fact that he crawled back to the Russos should tell you how desperate he feels right now.
But I mean, he would have.
And the Russos, mind you,
with Deadpool.
And let's be real here.
See, that's the other thing. He wanted Sean Levy to direct the Avenger. He doesn't know how to pick directors.
You're right.
Remember,
they almost made Daniel Destin Cretin, whatever his name is, from Shang-Chi, do that. These are the people you want to do Avengers movies? Oh, wow.
The same with the writers.
But also, let's be real here. The Russos are not that great either. They've made some of the worst movies ever made these last few
garbage films, but for whatever reason, they do pretty okay with Avengers films.
Yeah, like they're able to get creative with it or something, and
maybe because they're TV directors and they can actually like deliver on a finale. Perhaps that's what happened.
That's what's funny. On his own, I think Kevin Feige sucks. On their own, the what do you call them?
Russos.
The Russos suck. For whatever reason, when they've made shit together, it works pretty well.
Let's not discount Marcus and McFeely, who were there the whole way through.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of how George Lucas and Dave Filoni work well together, but on their own,
not so much.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I agree. So it's like to a certain extent, but it's like also, I've really enjoyed the Russos' Avengers films. I don't know if I've loved them.
I mean, in comparison to what's come out lately.
Oh, yeah, much better. Yeah.
It's like, we're so far removed from that reality. I don't know how well they work as individual films so much as they work as a finale to a saga, right?
I guess that's the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine just throwing on, like, Endgame. Or just throwing on... It doesn't work as much. Yeah.
So, I mean, because they're back in the mix, there's a chance maybe that will, with at least McFeely back and the Russos back, they seem to have a much greater know-how to them about.
They know how to juggle that shit.
Yeah,
they're
right?
master jugglers. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what these Avengers movies need. They need that,
Yeah.
and Kevin Feige can't provide that because, I mean, we've seen what happened when they left. Things just completely fell apart almost overnight when they all left, right? Like, that's how it feels like.
But honestly, they might have it easier this time because going into like Infinity War and Endgame, there was a lot of characters with very specific storylines set up.
Yeah.
Now nothing is set up.
Yeah.
Can you think of a single character where it's like, man, they're on a very specific trajectory?
Well, that's part of the problem for why the films no longer work, right? Because what people want out of this is what we said back in 2019 is, wait a minute, there's no longer a through line here, and partly we were a little bit attracted to that, but people were misunderstanding that. They thought that every piece, every project was all interlinked, and that hasn't been the case for many years now. And I think that's the thing that Marvel, we
got the
confused.
worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
We got none of the fun of the interconnectivity and like the sort of TV style like growth of characters over films, and we got none of like the interesting, solo filmmaking stuff going on. I can maybe count on like one hand or two where I'm like, oh, this was fun. I enjoyed it as far as its own thing, and I'm glad that it's its own thing. Mm-hmm. Like no one ever talks about it, but Werewolf by Night,
yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then after that,
there were beginnings
nothing.
of some things like with WandaVision. I thought they were going on the trajectory with her, but then Multiverse of Madness happened.
Yeah,
it's done.
They fucked it up.
The only one I can think of is like Falcon and Hawkeye, but
he kind of does. Yeah.
Hawkeye is the only one I can think of.
But this is why the TV shows were a mistake. Aside from the Marvel Studios movie team dividing themselves to do TV shows now, they also made the mistake of promoting them to be, on equal footing of the movies, because now what happens is when the audience has been trained to think that every single project is going to, further one storyline, and now all of a sudden they don't, they're going to be like, well, wait a minute here. This all feels discombobulated. They should have made the announcement from the very beginning that even though the shows were in the MCU, they're not going to further the movie storyline. People felt that way with WandaVision and with Multiverse of Madness until they didn't. And then they realized, oh, wait, what? And now we're at a place where there's an Agatha show coming, and I'm like, why does that exist?
Why? Yeah.
Why does that exist? What is that going to do?
Yeah.
Well, who are the main characters of the Marvel universe right now?
Who are the Avengers, really? It has been how many years since Endgame, and the one question people have had is, who's the roster for the Avengers right now? How many movies have they made about like, oh, I want to be an Avenger, but who are the Avengers?
This is a massively self-inflicted wound, specifically by Feige, because he came out and said, oh no, we're not going to do Avengers films anymore until like the big finale, after like 3 phases. He's like, because almost every movie is like a team up movie, we don't need to do Avengers films. That was so fucking stupid. That was the worst idea creatively, because Avengers films, good or bad, grounded the universe and made people sort of understand from the top down.
They were the anchor.
They were the anchors of this universe, and because
they were the anchor of every phase.
Yes,
they were the anchor
and now
points.
that the anchor is gone, yeah. But technically, yeah, like it held. They were the spine that held it together, and then because you could at least have an understanding of what the whole world was with each Avengers film, and now. Who knows, right? There's so much shit has been thrown at the wall, and none of it is ever really that concrete. So it's weird. So like, yeah, going into making Secret Wars, what storylines do they have to really worry about continuing? Like, genuinely, what storylines by which characters? She-Hulk? What character trajectory was she on? Hawkeye, what character trajectory? He's with his family. That's it. Maybe Captain America, but I'm skeptical. We'll see what the movie has in store with him.
Mm-hmm.
But like every other major character I can think of that they would include, there's no like. Think about going into Endgame, right? That it was just post Civil War, right? And you could see the whole trajectory of where Tony Stark went with his character and where they were at the end of Civil War, and the same with Tony, and the same with to much lesser extents like the Hulk and lesser known characters. Like, even though they didn't focus on it too much, the romance between Wanda and Vision was there from the very beginning of like Avengers 2. They like touch on it a little bit Avengers 2. Then they touch on it a little bit more in Civil War. You know, in like you see that growth. There's no characters where you see that little growth in each film since Endgame. They've lost that completely.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe they couldn't figure that out for themselves. How
so
much
weird.
of a mess this would leave them in. They're in dire straits, which is why they're fast tracking these Avengers films, because at this point they've messed up too many things. Too many projects have blown up in their face, and here we are. And I think, speaking to the money that they're dumping on this, I think the calculation on Feige's part is that go big or go home. Like, I need to save whatever. I need to save this brand. I need to save this universe, and this is the best option I have on my plate right now.
And what I hate, though, too, is that Secret Wars is going to reset the universe, and I don't like that at all. Like,
I mean, at this point, I think they might need it.
No, I understand they need it, but I still don't like it, just because it's like, I know why you're doing it in the first place. It's not because you want to, like, have some fun things going on or something like that. It's like, no, you need this reset because you made a mess. I mean, that's the reason why. To be
fair, though, I agree, and I can understand why you might not like that. I think an added benefit of doing a reset is it gives them a blank canvas to introduce X-Men, because I think that's one of the things that they're having a hard time with is how do you introduce X-Men into this MCU? I
think he had no idea how to do it. I think after Secret Wars, it's going to be all X-Men all the time.
That's the thing, though. If that was the purpose for Secret Wars, is to just be like, okay, we really don't know how to introduce X-Men. We're going to reset it. And
to be fair, it's tough because X-Men is kind of historical.
Yeah.
Like,
and so, like, if that was the purpose,
either they're there
Secret
from the
Wars,
beginning or they're not.
I would have been like, I'm excited.
Well, how are you going to do Fantastic Four?
Fantastic Four, they're from another
universe.
Universe.
Yeah. They're gonna be in the 60s.
They're going that route.
future.
Yeah, they're in the multiverse. They're in a universe that's like 60s retro futuristic. Which honestly, I almost prefer that, just so we don't have to like deal with endless references to like the broader MCU in silly ways. To be like, actually, if you look back in the first Iron Man, Reed Richards was in the crowd of da-da-da-da-da. Like, you don't deal with any of that shit.
They did that with Tom Holland's character in Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
They remember he was that kid, I guess, in Iron Man 2. Yeah,
sure.
That's not great. Speaking of Tom Holland, what are they going to do with Spider-Man?
I'm hoping they get a good director. For a while, they were throwing around Drew Goddard, where I was like, ooh.
They really were thinking of him?
I think they were. I think that was a serious consideration.
Now he's making that Matrix movie. Which, fuck that.
Well, for sure, what's his name isn't coming back.
Mr. John Watts.
John Watts, which is fine. And the names that I saw them throw around were like experienced directors, which got me a little excited, you know? But I think also I think Sony just wants to do more of what they did in what do you call it?
No Way Home.
No Way Home. And I think, funny enough, Marvel's the one that's been like, it can also be a real movie to some extent, and they're like, no. We want that money.
What is stopping Sony from just greenlighting Spider-Man 4 with Sam Raimi and then The Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield? Why can't they just do that?
You know what I'm really surprised they haven't done is to just do Miles Morales live action.
Yeah, that is. I mean,
I'm really surprised they haven't pulled that trigger.
I can understand if maybe they want to finish the Spider-Verse movies first.
But it's Sony.
Yeah.
Like, why would they care about the artistic integrity of anything, right? Like,
I mean, we haven't talked about the Madam Web in the room, have we?
They greenlit Madam Web. I don't think they're above having an animated and a live action, what's his name? At the same time.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're above that. Remember, they still have a Kraven the Hunter film that needs to come out at some point. They're not above any of that shit. That's why I'm really surprised they haven't done it
yet.
By the way, real quick, an idea I floated around, Peter. I'm wondering if you would be interested in participating about doing a movie reaction to Madam Web, because none of us have seen it for our channel.
I mean, maybe, yeah, when I get a little more time.
Because can you believe that came out this year, right?
Last year.
Was it this year? I think it was last year.
No, it was this year.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
It was like February, or wasn't it? Yeah, it was February
actually,
or January.
Right. I think it was February. My gosh, it's been a long year.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are the people who are like, I wonder why they don't do this when they greenlight things like Madam Web.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
Then maybe the only thing I can think of is they want to finish off Tom Holland's. I don't know.
Well, how many more movies is it really gonna do with them?
I really thought they were like, my theory was they were going to make 9 movies with him or something, because from the beginning it seemed like the Homecoming trilogy was going to be him learning about great power comes great responsibility, and then the next 3 would have been about him balancing.
He learned that 3 times.
He really.
And then him balancing out, being hero and no more life. And then the next 3 could have been about passing down the mantle. So, like, that's how right off from Homecoming, that's what I theorized. But even they can't plan that much ahead. So.
And speaking of money, how much more money they got to pay Tom Holland and Zendaya now to be in those movies? It's gonna be even more expensive.
Just leave Zendaya out, man.
See, yeah, but they have to. They're gonna. Again, from a story perspective, I think it's so much better if she doesn't appear in at least at the
Let's
very
move
least,
on
the next
from her.
film.
Yeah.
You can come back around to her, but give him some time by himself to they kind of grow separately.
I would love it if they put Black Cat in the next one and they have like a little relationship, obvious. But make it so like it's like a toxic relationship going on, but you just can't let it go. My God. That'll work so well.
It works so well. It's perfectly set up. But I felt the same way about every other Spider-Man film, how they set up the next, and then they just would always jettison that and then do something else. Yeah. So I don't know if it'll happen. But no, yeah, it's set up perfectly for Black Cat.
Also, at the same time,
have her come in as the love interest for a few movies.
Why not just go for it at this point if you're Sony? Like, look, they keep embarrassing themselves, and you know what? To give them their credit, they keep finding new ways to lower the bar for as far as like how they humiliate themselves with the movies that they make. But at this point, why not just go for broke and do the fucking Sinister Six and straight up just do it? Like you've been wanting to do this.
They basically already did.
They've been trying to Sinister 5 at the same time. Like they tried doing that with Garfield and everything. It just didn't work out.
Well, I guess what Peter's saying is that they kind of did that with No Way Home. Mm-hmm. But they just were in a movie that was a real Spider-Man movie, not like a spin-off movie. Mm-hmm. I had forgotten there was a Kraven movie that's coming out.
Also, I just realized too, instead of doing Miles Morales, why haven't they done Spider-Gwen? Like
they could have done that too, yeah.
I feel like that's more.
There's all these other Spider-Man people that they could have done instead, but they're doing Madam Web.
Dude, the games are doing so much better at setting this like other Spider people up. The last game, Spider-Man 2, they set up. I think her name is Silk or something like that.
Silk. You know Silk?
Yeah, I know of her.
Okay. Yeah.
But like
she's
basically what they
she's
set
cool.
up.
She's interesting.
Yeah, that's basically what they set up in the last one, and it's like cool. You're setting up a whole Spider family and all that. It's like
Wasn't there something in the leaked email scandal from years ago that they were exploring an Aunt May movie? Or was that a joke?
Yeah,
that said?
No, I think that was real. That was fucking real. They were looking at an Aunt May movie. But I mean, I would have at the time I would have told you a Madam Web movie was like on the same level of bullshit.
And yet here we are.
And then they made it, so.
I don't know what to say. I mean, this is where we are, and like again, like the situation doesn't seem to be improving with Sony. It seems to be getting worse. DC is on hold until Superman happens. And as far as the MCU is concerned, so the next movie coming out is Brave New World, and I feel that seems like it's going to be a disaster, just based on how troubled the production has been and how many times it's been rewritten. So that's not going to be great. You would think that there may be some hope with Fantastic Four, but again, you have a TV director doing it. Kevin Feige's around, and again, I see no reason to not feel as if just because Kevin Feige's in the room doesn't mean I feel no reason to back off from my thought that because Feige is around, it automatically means the whole project suffers as a result of him being in the room, and that's just kind of what seems to be happening. It has been a painful couple of years. And if you notice, things continue to degrade. Like, I thought we hit a bottom. But no, they keep finding new ways to sink lower and lower. So, yeah, I mean, but as, you know, the movie Deadpool Wolverine made so much money, it's going to continue to make more money. Those Avengers films make a lot of money, and I guess we're here to stay, but you really do have to wonder. Kevin Feige has fallen so much. It's not that surprising to think they couldn't see this coming, but I have to think that in the offices of Marvel and Disney, they were a little bit caught off guard by how much resistance there immediately was to the fact that their big villain is now going to be played by Robert Downey Jr. That seems to be like, I mean, you said it yourself, Peter. It gave you Palpatine vibes.
Yeah.
This is like jumping the shark.
It's just a cheap. There's a reason why a lot of people, and you saw there was not like a massive backlash, but there was just a lot of people going like, yeah, I'm not. This doesn't make me excited. Like, I don't like this. It's for good reason, because he's his own character, and it kind of reduces him to just
another version of Iron Man.
Another version of Iron Man, yeah.
I know you probably wouldn't like this, Peter, but I really wouldn't mind if they lean in with just that. It's a evil Iron Man, but surprise us, really surprise us, and have the real Doom come in and kill him. Okay, so that's that. I highly doubt it's gonna happen, but like that's the.
Or
best
you could.
You mean like a Mandarin Trevor Slattery situation?
Kind of like that.
I mean, no, you're wasting time. Just have the real Doom.
No, I get that,
and build that up.
No,
like
I get that too. But you know, if you really want to build up Doom to be like a big villain for the Avengers, you know, have him be able to be powerful enough to kill off your main hero, or like.
This is my question, guys. Does this mean that they're not ever going to do a real Doom then?
No, I think
they might.
No, yeah, I think RDJ is just going to be.
It's the same thing of like, are they not going to do a real Green Goblin now? I don't know, because if it's been done before, Kevin Feige seems to like to avoid it. You know what I mean?
You're right. He is kind of scared to touch that.
He's scared to touch things that he feels have already been done really well.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, how do you follow up Willem Dafoe? In the same way, how do you follow up Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen?
Like, I don't know if we ever would have gotten a Dr. Octopus at all in the MCU if it wasn't this whole thing to bring back those original characters. So yeah, I don't know. But also, the difference is there's never been a good version of Doctor Doom in live action.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of shit doesn't really hold back. And I guess that's why people got excited about Doctor Doom. Because it's like, okay, like... So with Spider-Man, it's kind of hard to get excited with the MCU Spider-Man stuff. Because it's like, well... some of the best versions of the character have already existed, you know? So it's like, okay, we'll see where it's coming from. But with Fantastic Four, they are the Marvel characters. They're great. And arguably, they've never been done that well. So it's like, okay, awesome. You know, we're going to get these great versions. And then now it's like, who knows? I mean, not to say I'm excited for the movie, because like you said, it's been burned too many times with especially recently with these kinds of Marvel films. But if there was going to be one that I'm sort of looking forward to, it would be the Fantastic Four. And it would be that one and whatever X-Men variation comes out eventually. And fuck it, Blade. Because stabbing vampires is cool.
But that's also the same kind of problem, right? It's like, you're going to do Blade, but I mean, you have those old movies, and it's like, how do you... It's like how... We've seen what happens. Like, I know I've only seen Blade 2. Blade 2's fucking great. But Blade 2 has a whole...
That's what's tripping up Kevin Feige. He's in that scenario where it's like... Blade was awesome. No, but, I mean, the Sam Raimi movies were awesome, and he was still able to put out, like, a Spider-Man.
I know it wasn't Kevin Feige, but we've already seen when they try and do a Guillermo del Toro movie without him. And didn't they do a Hellboy reboot?
They're on their third one? Second one?
Third one, yeah. That was so random.
That trailer
When did it even... Wait, there's a new Hellboy?
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I won't.
It's more a porn parody.
Oh my god.
Oh man. So, as I said at the beginning, this is where we are with them. Again, for me, is there anything I'm genuinely looking forward to? It's just Superman. That's it.
Oh, for sure. That's my number one.
Anything else, I don't care. And it's sad about that. I mean, because there's so much, energy and money being dumped into this, and I don't know. I mean, part of me, honestly, with Deadpool and Wolverine made me feel like, is this even for me anymore? But then I watched the X-Men movies and I watched the old Deadpool movies, and I'm like, no, I still love this shit. Yeah. So it's like...
Sometimes you feel like the old curmudgeon. It's like, no, you can make them well. You can do this good.
I mean, the Batman did just come out 2 years ago. It still
came out, yeah.
Which, speaking of, where the hell is that sequel? Where is that sequel? Like, come on. That's another one
where it's like, it should not take this long. It should not take this long yet. Oh. I don't know what Matt Reeves has been doing.
I mean, we're getting the Penguin.
I guess that. And Peacemaker.
Season 2.
So for whatever that's worth, I guess there's that. But as we close this podcast, I just want to say, for those of you who are, just film fans, thank you so much for checking us out, and thank you for staying tuned here. In the coming weeks, we will come back to you and bring you whatever we can. These days, of course, we not really sure what the hell is next, honestly, as far as the big release is concerned. But we'll be here. We'll talk about it. At some point, Peter will come back and we'll talk about Furiosa, because we loved it and we need to give it its due. Maybe by the time it comes out on Blu-ray, we can talk about Furiosa. Who knows? Which is next month, if you can believe that. So there is that. Anyway, stay tuned for more content on our Red Spotlight Entertainment channel for more. I want to thank David and I want to thank Peter so much for the time that they've given the show. There was, there was no need of them to be as generous as they were with the time that they've given the show. But giving credit where credit is due. Thank you all so much, and thank you all again for listening and for watching. We will see you guys next time. Bye bye.